that. But once again, the truth about gaslighting. And this is why we ask you guys to make sure that you're aware of the different platforms we're on or whatever. So if you need to jump over, come to something else or whatever, right? Praise God. Yeah, the YouTube. Yeah, YouTube is back on. It's been off. I literally have uploaded the YouTube live three times now. So we praise y'all for that. But yeah, so we'll be back on. Hold on one second. Hold on one second, y'all. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. I'm not going anywhere. I'm literally texting somebody something. Give me 10 seconds. Hold on one second. Okay. So this is gonna be one of those challenging ones. This is gonna be one of those challenging ones. That's okay though, right? Because we're talking about the truth about gaslighting. So yeah. But we're on. We're fine. So obviously, what we're talking about today is something that's not wanted to be known. Welcome back, Samea, Samea. Yeah, but this is why you have to be prepared for things, right? And one of the reasons that healing cannot take place, one of the reasons, press and strain, amen. Look beyond what you see. How you doing, Minister Sonia? So one of the reasons why it's difficult for us to make it past this as a diaspora, as a people, is because gaslighting is always attached to our experience, right? Gaslighting is always attached to our experience. Bless you, user 718. How you doing? Gaslighting is always attached to our experience. How you doing, Nika? And so when gaslighting is attached to your experience, it means that it's going to be very difficult to heal when somebody won't actually listen to what's going on, right? It's like going to a doctor. And if you go to a doctor and you say, hey, I'm having an issue with this, I'm having an issue with that, right? Up is popping in and out, you said? Oh, pops back out. Okay, I got you. Yeah. So when it comes to gaslighting, how you doing, Minister Shante? When it comes to gaslighting, you got to realize it's like going to the doctor, which a lot of you have this experience. You go to the doctor, hey, this is what's going on with me. I've got a pain in my knee. The doctor says, oh, what, you just want pain medicine? No. Matter of fact, I don't have pain medicine, but I would like for you as a doctor to be able to help me out with what's going on with my knee, right? Same thing. Somebody comes up and says, hey, people in Mississippi aren't eating. Oh, you know what? That's why you guys are always looking for a handout. No, I'd like for you to have Brett Favre and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and the governor of Mississippi stop stealing from people. And I didn't even say black people. I said people are having their money stolen, right? But somebody's gaslighting. And so therefore, you can't fix what's there because now you're making the Republican versus Democrat thing, right? Is gaslighting. All this stuff is designed to be able to take you from what is actually going on, your actual experience, the actual calling, the actual problems, the actual ideologies that are being formed, the actual ideas that must be recognized, and they're trying to take you somewhere else. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? Yep, we're back on, Sister Bree. So a lot of our trauma is attached to gaslighting, and that's the truth about gaslighting, is that people are attaching it to your trauma because they don't want to deal in your trauma. Now, may I be honest with you? Maybe it's not always nefarious. Sometimes it's because somebody might be ignorant of your trauma, right? You said what? You tell the doctor to keep the meds and give a solution for the issue. Been there? Yeah. A lot of us have gone through that. Matter of fact, I don't worry about doctors anyways because we're in the herbalism, so we're fine. But this is the real issue. I'm not saying if you're in the herbalism you can't see the doctor, but you know what I'm saying, right? But the real issue is that your trauma is difficult to deal with. If somebody else gaslights, or now here's something we got to admit as well: self accountability. What if you are gaslighting? What if you have trauma and you keep trying to find every way to go around it, right? And this is part of our experience, right? This is part of our experience as well, is that we don't deal with the fact that we have trauma. We won't admit that maybe some of the things that we're doing are things that come from other generations. Like, we won't admit that, hey, if you come from a mama and daddy that yell at each other all the time, maybe it's not normal for you to be yelling at your spouse. And when your spouse says, why are you yelling at me? Maybe you should try to figure out why you yelling, instead of gaslighting and telling them, hey, it's because of you. You said you were able to get healed of your bone spurs. They were encouraging you to get surgery, but you got it done through natural medicine. Hallelujah, praise God, right? See, and somebody else will gaslight you and tell you that's not possible. How you doing? 74? Is it Brendan or Brenda? 74, Brenda Kelly. Thanks for being on part of the community. And if I miss you, by the way, we got a lot of people that pop in and out of the chat, so please forgive me. Charge it to my head, not to my heart. I'm not the most high. I might miss something here or there, but I promise you we're trying our best, right? So gaslighting is something. You said, is gravity proven or real? Well, I'm not here to talk about that as much today, but people gaslight when you even speak on that subject matter, right? So real quick on that, and then we'll kind of get back into the flow. We're gonna go a lot of different directions with this, of course. Um, I appreciate you too, big sis. I'm sorry, appreciate you too, Minister. I, you my sister, but I can make sure I call you Minister. Um, what was I gonna say? Yeah, gravity, right? So even gravity really is a theory. It's a theory that was there by Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton then on his before he died basically said he didn't agree with this theory and has been disproven by the theory of relativity. But if you say that, somebody will gaslight and be like, "Oh, so you're one of those flat earthers and blah blah." What does that even have to do? Right? Uh-oh. You said this word put you in your place. You were unaware of how much you would gaslight. Um, Yeah, and a lot of us gaslight. A lot of us do things like that all the time. Once again, going back to the personal issues, right? Is that like a lot of us are going through things and we won't even deal with it, and that is gaslighting against oneself. And thank you for the love, appreciate it. That's gaslighting even against yourself if you're not careful, right? You'll gaslight against yourself. You'll gaslight. Um, Against your own thought process, your own healing, your own idea, your own way of becoming greater. You'll gaslight against yourself, and you'll find ways to do it because what happens is you're trying to find a way to make it through the system. You're trying to find a way to get through the culture. You're trying to find a way to make it through this reality, even if the reality is very false and fake around you. You're going to try your best to make it through, right? Prayerfully, you feel better in a second. Minister Shante, how you doing? Gift of Yahweh or gift of Yahweh, how you doing? So a lot of us gaslight through things because we just got to make it through, right? If you got to go to your oppressor for a job, and I'm not just talking about black, white right now, I'm talking about anything that's oppressive. If you got to go to your oppressor and ask them to make sure that they give you something to take care of your family, you're in bad shape. So in order to make it, you're going to do what? You're going to do what the oppressor wants you to do. You're going to become the oppressor's idea of a great worker, of a good worker, of an indentured servant, right? You're going to do what those things are, right? Well, we're going to be talking about gaslighting for a while. So give us a little bit of time. We'll probably get there. Sorry to hear what you were talking about Japan. And I'm be honest, I'm out of tune. I didn't even know Japan. I know Japan often does actually go through earthquakes. And I've had family that's gone to Japan, lived in Japan, on both sides of my family, my side and my wife's side. But my family's actually gone over there physically. But I have not, I didn't know that it was earthquake season like that. So we are praying for you. Hopefully things will get better for you. So, and thank you for shouting out my wife in the chat as far as the herbalism as well. Appreciate that, y'all. I think Minister Sonia and Minister Shante did so. So, when we're dealing with this gaslighting, man, you got to realize like this gaslighting, it's always attached to trauma, right? And gaslighting is something people use to be able to say, okay, you know what, somebody like it's weird ways we do it. So, for example, um, we listen to a lot of motivational speaking and stuff. And in a sense, I am a motivational speaker. I don't mind being labeled as such. How you doing, Marcus Sheriff? You know, however, we'll do things like, man, like motivational speakers, nobody gonna help you. You got to get it. Everything's inside you. You're gonna do it by yourself. Nobody's gonna care about you. You got to do, even if nobody else, forget everybody else, right? So, which is basically saying that you don't belong in the society. We're not even thinking about the damage that some of that stuff causes, right? But here we have a situation where you got to take accountability for everything now. See, I'm big on accountability, but I'm not going to act like I should ask you to be accountable for things that you didn't do. I can be so this might seem confusing if I don't break this down a little bit more. So for example, if somebody hurt you, I can't hold you accountable for them hurting you. If you tell me somebody hurt you and they're not and somebody won't listen to the fact that you've been hurt, and they keep telling you it's somebody else's fault, that's gaslighting. I won't tell you that you haven't been hurt. I won't listen to you. I won't be empathetic. What I will hold you accountable for is, are you going to decide to forgive? And are you going to make the steps necessary to be able to make it past the experience? Because the other person might not ask for forgiveness, but can you still forgive before they ask? Right? The other person might not ever come back in your life again, but even if they don't and there's no closure, can you still make sure that you have that you are able to get closure through another experience or through another process, right? Somebody else might not give you reparations, but can you have inward reparations? Right. Well, I'm not asking anybody to forget. If you feel like you never can forget something or whatever, I mean, that's fine. You should be aware of what somebody did to you for sure. Right. But we're talking about, yeah, exactly. We're talking about that healing. Yeah, one then starts gaslighting oneself. Because if you're not gonna do that, what has to happen is you have to deal with cognitive dissonance. You have to deal with being double-minded. You have to say, okay, I need to make it through, but something's happening to me that I haven't actually talked about as far as I need to heal. So you start making excuses for yourself, and what's happening is you're having like a brain heart conversation. Your brain is saying, I gotta go. Or watch this. Your heart is saying, I'm hurt. We talked about this on Patreon a while ago. Your heart is saying, I'm hurt. I'm frustrated. I'm disgusted. I've gone through some things. Your brain says, but you got to go to work tomorrow, right? And so if you're not careful, you start having double-mindedness, thinking with two brains, because you think with more than just your mind, or you're more than just your brain. You think with your brain, you think with your mind, you think with your heart, you think with your gut, you think with your feet, you think with your feelings, right? And if we're not careful, you'll start your heart is saying, I need healing. Your heart is saying, hey, don't forget about me. Your heart is saying, what's going on here? Your heart is saying, like, I'm still got this anger issue. Your brain says, get over it, stop being a victim. Your heart says, I got power. Your heart says, I need this in my life. Your heart says, dad wasn't there. Right? Your heart says mama wasn't there. Your heart says, hey, I feel like I'm by myself. Your brain says nobody cares about you. Your job don't care about that. Your bills don't pay about that. Don't care about that. And now you got a real issue going on, because the only way you're going to survive, you're going to have to create cognitive dissonance. That means that your brain has to gaslight your heart. So now your brain is like, we got to get to work. Your heart's like, I can't do it. Right? Whatever. Hello to you. So your brain is saying, I got to get things done. Your brain is saying, I got to become better. Your brain says, I need to treat people with respect. Your heart says, no, I'm not moving. So then your brain says, okay, look, if you hadn't fell in love in the first place, right, then you wouldn't be in this situation. Your brain begins to give a pep talk to your heart, which is trying to jumpstart your heart, so to speak. Your heart is like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm finished. Right. Right. Konnichiwa. How are you doing? Right. So your brain begins to say, we got to get going. So your brain says, look, if you hadn't fell in love in the first place, you would have never had these issues. Your heart starts to go, maybe you're right. I just came out of a bad experience. Your brain says, yeah, you came out of a bad experience. From now on, let's put the job first, and let's take care of everybody else. And let's stop worrying about the fact that you need to be taken care of, because everybody's depending on you. It sounds great. It sounds motivational, but your heart's still like, I'm not feeling that, but okay, I guess. And what happens is this: you'll go through, your brain takes over. It might kick in. It might do well for years, telling your heart that this is not real. It's not what's going on. There's no truth to it. How you doing, Sister Mary? All these different things, whatever. And guess what, though? At some point, you have what's called what? An emotional breakdown or a mental breakdown, right? Why? Because at some point your heart finally says, I haven't got my love language taken care of. You never took care of me. You kept saying that this wasn't there. I believed you. I trusted you. I honored you. I went to the job. I put all this stuff there. I didn't live. But then your heart finally says, look, I can't do it no more. Right? And the rest of your body starts speaking up. Your feet say, yeah, I can't walk in this way anymore. Right? Your body starts saying, yeah, I'm not feeling this. Your mesentery starts saying, I have a bad feeling in my gut about this if we keep going this way. But your brain's still saying, hang in there, y'all. Trust me. We're going to get there. You gaslighting even yourself, because a lot of time we can't deal with the trauma because the trauma is attached to the gaslighting. Yeah, exactly. The can is shaking, the pop is shaking, the soda is shaking, the soda pop is shaking, whatever you want to call it, right? And eventually what happens? You're going to open. Something has to open up. At some point, the can is designed to be open, and at some point, the can shall be open. And when it gets open, boom, and then everybody says, "Why was there that explosion? What's wrong with you?" And you'll even say to people, "I don't know where that came from." You know, but you haven't paid attention to it enough. Or watch this: you're aware of it, but you don't know. The word "know" means to be intimate with, and you're not intimate with your own heart, right? We're not intimate with our own heart. Yeah, of course we're being gaslit about our history. That's why I've talked about it, and I'm going to continue to talk about it and stuff. So we'll go into that. But I'm trying to show you, even with our own trauma, what started to happen is we're not healing because rather than deal with our trauma, we keep gaslighting. Hey man, if you just vote, make sure you get out there. That's what they've been telling you on November 8th. November 8th, make sure you get out there and vote. That's what they've been telling you, all right. Next Tuesday, hey, get out there and vote. If you don't vote, the world is coming to an end. But you've been voting for a long time. That's your brain. Your heart is saying, what about redlining? You see that? The heart of your people. What about the fact that we're not eating correctly? What about the fact that we're not allowed to live together? Do you know that we were better as far as where we were financially? We were better in segregation than we are now in integration. I'm not saying I don't believe that people should come together around different races or whatever social construct you want to use, but I'm telling you, do you realize that? Yeah, even the polls, right? To give your opinion. A politic. A poll is about your opinion. It's not about a fact. That is not something they have to use. They're just taking your opinion into account, right? That's all it is. How you doing, brother Keon? Right? But hey, get out there and vote. If you don't vote, everything's gonna go crazy. If you don't make sure that women can't have abortions, everything's gonna fall apart. If they can't have abortions, what'll come next? But our women still can't get paid the way they're supposed to. You gonna step on some toes in the slide? I mean, we might have to. Praise Yah, right? If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off, right? I'm not saying that this is every single person who's listening, but you can see clearly that this is a continued thing that's been going on for a while. All right, same to you, Josh. Thank you for being on. Right, and so your brain and your heart are having a problem because there's gaslighting going on. The brain eventually tries to tell the heart, "Hey, get over yourself. You don't have a victim mentality. Do this, do that." Right, but the heart, the passion, the thing that has to beat in order for the brain to even work, is saying, "Look, man, I gotta deal with this." What happens when the heart of a people is always on life support? How you doing, Lorray? Right, and I tried to respond to your comment, by the way, if you like, so that you can maybe look at some of our playlists and stuff. You know, but you gotta realize that. So how do we pass laws about qualified immunity without the right policies in place? Uh-oh. Okay. And well, if you're still there, um, how do you create policies without the right laws in place? Well, number one, if you're talking about those things or whatever, it's not about the right laws. We're not looking at the system. See, even in that is gaslighting, and I don't mean that you're gaslighting, but you're picking up even terminology and thought process and psychology that's not really pertaining to the actual reason why we're in that situation, right? Number one, right? Yeah, they don't say get over it about the Holocaust. Matter of fact, it's not even the Holocaust; it's a Holocaust, right? But real talk, you know, the problem with immigration, the problem with continued segregation just on the low, the problem with chattel slavery just done in prisons or even still being done in real time outside of prison walls. People have gotten in trouble this year for having slave labor on camps and stuff for people of color. The problem with all those things is that you're dealing with a system. And really, the gaslighting person, the truth about gaslighting is that this system deals in trauma. That's what it is, right? Like the reality is that the system deals in trauma. It is the very fabric of the system. This system, it deals in your trauma, right? Your trauma is used to stir things up. Go look at all these different things that be presented, these commercials. You know, Herschel Walker was this and that, and he's terrible, or he's a liar, or he's this and that. Do you want that over the state of Georgia? I mean, if he's not over there, what did the last governor do? It's the same trauma. Just because I put somebody new on there doesn't mean it's not the same trauma. How you doing, Sister Deja? Right? Like just because it's a different, you see what I'm saying? And thank you for the compliment on the chemise or the tunic. Just because it's something that's new. Like this is the same trauma that's been going on, right? Like you think that George Washington had a different responsibility than Joe Biden? He's not running for governor, whatever he's running for. What is he running for? Senate, governor, whatever. Is it going to be the same trauma? And I'm not trying to say that in a mean way. I don't know what he's running for, in all honesty. But whatever he's running for, put him in whatever position you want him to. Put him running for president. I don't care. At the end of the day, is the trauma going to change? Is anybody going to talk about the trauma? Is anybody going to talk about the fact that people still think that there's a real color of people called white? That's traumatic. Why do you think there's a such thing as a white person? And thank you, moderators. Appreciate you. Yeah, deals in death and trauma, mortgage, death. No, yeah, exactly. Even that. What is your mortgage? It's a mortgage. Somebody gauges your mortality. That's what a mortgage is, right? This trauma. Somebody's looking, then they think the average person will probably die before da da da. So they literally write out a contract for you to say, hey, pay us off and pay this much amount of money, and we think you'll probably die. But even if you won't, we're pretty sure you probably have a second or third mortgage that you'll take out. It's trauma. This system is based off of trauma. And when somebody tries to bring it up, they try to gaslight you and tell you, oh no, it's not really trauma. You said to you, trauma is defeated by private group economics. Depends on what the private group is. I feel like you'd be absolutely right if certain types of people came together to make sure they dealt with trauma. And there are some that are doing so. We're trying to become one that's even better at doing so than what we already do. And things in the community, things around the world, et cetera. And even things like this, teaching and classes that we give and SOC University and all types of stuff we're trying to do. But also, too, let's be honest, a lot of the trauma comes from private corporations because who owns the government? The private corporation. What is the definition of capitalism? Capitalism is defined as a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. Trade and industry is wielded by private corporations and not the state, which means that if the state, which means the government or the country, and so if the state has to bow is causing trauma, but the state has to bow down to private corporations, then that means the private corporation tells the state which traumas to be able to introduce, which also means that when people say, hey, I'm having an experience, right? I feel like I'm dealing with anxiety and I'm dealing with trauma. They make more pain off your trauma or more money off of your pain and trauma and your pain and suffering. Why? Because they say, hey, go ahead and take this pill that is actually going to give you side effects that are going to cause you more trauma, which means you got to come back for more pills. It's connected to the same thing. So I agree with you. We should become private and therefore become sovereign and become a sovereign nation, become a royal priesthood, a chosen generation, a holy nation, a peculiar people. That's what we should do. That's what we should work towards. Hello, Zachary. How you doing? That's what we should work towards. I have no problem with that. But problem is that we even gaslight ourselves out of it. Well, we tried it before. Look at what they did to Wilmington in 1898. Look at what they did to Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921. Look at what they did to Haiti in the early 1800s. Look at what they did. Look at what they did. Look at what they did. But look at what they did to Marcus Garvey. Look at what they did to Malcolm X. Look what they did to MLK. But you know what? We forget that after MLK, they started doing things to try and scare you out of things, and they broke down the Black Panthers, simultaneously from the 60s through the 70s into the 80s and make sure it was nothing, right? That's how Ronald Reagan actually became president, because he was killing off those things. And we love to talk about that, and that's true. It's truth. Let's not gaslight it. Let's not go around it. But the gaslighting steps in when we say we can't do anything about it. See, Marcus Garvey got caught up because think about this. Either it was different time periods of people that just didn't work with each other. But you had Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, and Elijah Muhammad kind of sort of like back to back to back. And they kind of grew up together in a sense, but didn't do anything with each other. Wilmington and Rosewood kind of right near each other, but didn't do anything for each other. Tulsa, there were other places besides just Tulsa, but nobody was protecting each other. Tulsa wasn't even really trying to protect itself and was still doing business with somebody who wanted them dead, right? What happens if we as a people say, okay, we need to deal with our trauma, and this time we need to learn from the traumatic experiences, and we say we need to have the mindset of a Wilmington where we have power in certain places. We need to also have the mindset of a Tulsa where we have financial backing and we don't mind making sure that we live in royalty, so to speak. We also need to have the mindset of Garvey to make sure that we come together as a diaspora. At the same time, let's have a mindset of the Black Panther. Remember, MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., and the Black Panther Party are pretty much all right at the same time. What if you also added, besides what we already talked about, Malcolm X, who says, hey, whites can help us, but they can't join us because there can't be black-white unity until there's first black unity. So we need to get ourselves together before we graft others in. While having MLK, which we talk so dangerous about and so loose about it, always calling him a traitor and everything. But look up MLK, who says that, hey, we have to realize that there are white people who have decided that they don't have to learn anything, they can remain ignorant. And if they're going to remain ignorant and stay in militarism and capitalism and things such as that, that we're not going to be able to come out. And so we need to figure out how to do something, and even admits, hey, maybe I led my people into a burning house. Imagine if he had worked with Malcolm. Imagine if then, remember, the same year he died or he's killed is the same and assassinated is the same year that Fred Hampton is assassinated, right? Like, so imagine if MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., with the mind of Garvey, with the mind of Tulsa, with the mind of Rosewood are all coming together and working with the Black Panther Party. And it's not just young men trying their best to try and figure it out. Did a lot, and young women even more so eventually, because there would become more leaders in the Black Panther Party that were our sisters than there were brothers. Yeah, after the dream, he had a different message, even with the dream. Because when they marched on the march, they said, what are you marching for? He said, we're coming and we're looking for our check. That was in 1963 as well, right? So I'm just saying, like, what if we put these things together? What if Francis Cress Welsing wasn't beefing with Dr. Amos Wilson and they worked together? What if Dr. Sebi and Dr. Laya Africa weren't beefing with each other and they actually worked together? Two great minds in natural medicine, right? What if they worked together instead of being apart? You hear what I'm saying? Like we have to get to this place, and thank you for the love, appreciate it. Like we have to get to this place where we start saying to ourselves, we might be gaslighting ourselves if we're not careful. Yeah, we are loved, we are necessary, we are majestic, we're fearfully, wonderfully made, and we, which is us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. But you got to learn about self. Stop gaslighting yourself, right? Stop gaslighting yourself. What did Willie Lynch say for those who were in the Willie Lynch stuff? Willie Lynch said specifically, I'm sorry, you said what? You want the Black KKK Panther Party or something? Yeah, okay, whatever. First of all, there's no such group, but you're okay with the KKK party because Hoover told you in 1920 that the KKK had taken over your courts, they had taken over your police, they had taken over your government. Matter of fact, we know for a fact that there's a president, at least one, who decided that he was going to become a KKK member while being the president. We know that there's a president who decided to watch the original KKK movie. They changed it up now, The Birth of a Nation, but it originally was a movie about how it was dangerous, and the KKK needed to make sure that they were there to protect good white Christian Americans, especially from the black beast, especially from their women who would be raped and pillaged and stuff. You're okay with that. But J. Edgar Hoover, your boy, who really was somebody who was a brunette or could pass for white, you call it brunette nowadays, not even knowing what that means. But he was somebody who killed his own people and killed LGBTQ plus, even though he himself was gay and had a gay lover, who he left his finances and his fortune to. But he hated himself that much that he gaslit against his own self. Oh, amen, Samir. Right. He gaslit against his own self. See what I'm saying? If you're not careful to be able to make it in the system, you'll gaslight and kill your own self. How you doing, Benjamin? You'll kill yourself off. Right. And Willie Lynch told us, he said that his whole goal was to reverse your nature. He said, if I can get you away from being the natural N word, right? So basically being in your environment, being in nature, being natural, loving yourself, loving creation, loving the most high, loving your community. He said, if I can get you away from that, he said, you'll kill yourselves. Right? If I can get you to do, you'll gaslight against your own self. Colorism. You know how them light skinned N words be acting. How they be acting? Well, you know. You ain't got no evidence. Well, you know. You know how them dark skinned N words be. Don't worry about them. They always got that one in the chamber. That's gaslighting, though. What does that have to do with our people? What does that have to do with the reality of what's going on? Oh yeah, that's in the Willie Lynch letters and so much more. Right? We have a whole series. It was we probably had to bring that up. I had to figure out how to say it in a certain way because people then start lying on us and trying to get the lives canceled and stuff like that. So, but we had it on Facebook. Maybe we might have to do just like a Facebook only thing of that because Facebook, for whatever reason, allowed it to stay up. So, right? But you know, like, but he told you clearly. He said, "Yeah, we developed a way to get past you." You know what he said was number one on his list, not because it was the most, excuse me, not because it was the most important, but because it was he was going in alphabetical order. He said, first things first, when I want to divide you, he said, I'm gonna look for age. How you doing, Sister Helen? And man, does that divide a lot of people. What age are you? Who are you to talk to me? Do you know what you're talking about? Oh, you old, bruh. Man, that's old, man. That's like 20 years old. What you bringing that up for now? We ain't using that no more. We don't talk like that no more, bruh. Stop capping, bruh. Like as if capping wasn't something that didn't exist in the 1950s and 1960s as a term of expression. Right? But you don't know that. And they got you to believe that you can use the same language that people were using in the 60s and you can use it in 2020 and the 2020s, and you think that now is something new. Right? Like you got to see that they got us off on this. How you doing, Bantu? I'm sorry. He said most of these leaders are Freemasons controlled by the world's top elite. There certainly are. There certainly are. Some, sure. Right? But it's gaslighting. We don't even look at the trauma of that. When you look, watch this, you have been trained. I know some of y'all don't think so. And you might do well with maybe your grandparents. Some of you do, some of you don't. Right? But you might do well with your grandparents. But a lot of you have been trained to look at somebody who's older than you as knowing nothing, or somebody that's younger than you as knowing nothing. But how can you come together as a community if you can't even have different ages come together? Forget the different colors. What about the different ages? Right? But that's part of his story, not our story. Our story, our culture says different. You uplift those who need your help. You listen to your elders. Those who can't take care of themselves, you take care of them because if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be here. Right? In this culture nowadays, it causes. And look, I'm not saying everything Kanye said is wrong because Kanye has some truths out there, right? Kanye's just incomplete, and Kanye is serving another master, and now he's mad at that master, then give him what he wants. So he's kind of got like a feminism thing going on. You know how the feminist movement is about basically white women against the white master. The white master was supposed to treat them at some point, give them more, and he never kept it to his promise. Kanye is mad that he left his people, went to the white master, and now the white master won't treat him right. So now he wants us as a community to lift him up again. And I don't know if that's wrong or right, if I can be honest with you. But I'm not going to get into stuff to where it's like Kanye. First and foremost, I've done this with you already. They keep doing this. Like if we lift you up and fight for you, are you going to turn around and take care of us again, which you never really did? Or are you going to just go right back to saying, man, white lives matter? Right? But they got to separate it on age. They got to separate it on class, right? Who's in the master's house versus who's on the plantation. Either way, you a field Negro or a house Negro. And they use another word back then, right? Yeah, he's lukewarm, right? It's hard to digest what he's saying. You got to spit him out your mouth, right? But are you willing to deal with the fact that we're gaslighting each other, right? You're gaslighting yourselves at this point. We don't have to worry about massa because you gaslighting yourselves. And this is why a lot of people come on here and they get frustrated and they get upset because I'll be on here and I'll say, well, that's not my master. So somebody come on here, get a haircut. I don't have to worry about that. That's your master that says you got to look like that so you can make money. And even when I do step into that scene and have some kind of contract with them, whether it's speaking to somebody or whether it's helping somebody out or whether it's helping for, even if I do decide to do some labor for a hot second to catch up on some things bills wise or whatever, like that's not my, I don't have to do what you do. Like if they say I have to get rid of um, my promise to the Most High and cut off my hair or do whatever, then I just say I won't work for you. Right? But we don't. We gaslight so much. We've made the excuse. I have to look like this in order to fit into their system. What if there's a greater system? And this is what we're trying to work towards. Revelation chapter 12, YLP 83, Yah's Land Project, getting something where it's ours. What if there's a possibility and a like it's not just a possibility? How much of a probability by what we're willing to do is it that we can be part of something that eradicates all these different things? Right? Like, how often, how much are we willing to put towards something to ensure that we will become greater than what we are? Are we just going to keep saying, man, we don't have no land, but if you get 30, well, let's not even do 30 anymore. And I'm not asking for a specific number anymore. This time, whatever we get through fundraising is what we get, because we tried to do the 30 families thing, kind of fell apart. We still got some stuff out of that though. Hopefully it's going to keep growing from the kind of account we have it in, and that's fine. But, you know, I'm just saying, if you had 500 families that said that we'll give $100 a month in 1 year, you'd have enough to buy your own land, right? Gaslighting comes in when you say, oh, we can't do it. You said Buddhism would help y'all. Okay, if Buddhism is the context that you want to go through or whatever, and chanting and doing all those things or whatever. But hey, even with Buddha, let's make sure that we use him correctly. Buddha is called the enlightened one because he came from the enlightened people, which still means that we should make sure that we figure out where the enlightened people came from. If Buddha's there and Buddha said he's somebody who didn't even care about what it was as far as you getting to the Most High, he said that he really wanted you to become a better person. He said that on his deathbed. Are we talking about the Heart Sutra? Are we talking about the Lotus Sutra? Heck, some of people trying to act like Buddha made up the Kama Sutra, as some people live their lives and such. But what sutra are we talking about? What heart are we talking about? Which kind of prayer? What are we chanting to? Are you talking about SGI? Are you talking about Eastern philosophy? Are you talking about what was changed? Are you talking about the fact that, are we talking about the Four Noble Truths? Are we talking about the 10 realms? What is about the 10 realms and what's important in this realm that you need to get before you go to the other realm? Either way, either way, we still got to get to a place of what's the main thing. Let's not gaslight and be like, if you were the Buddhist, you get it together. What about if you treated people like human beings? I'm not saying you particular, but you know, what if we did that? How you doing, Rick? What if we treated each other as human beings? Right? What if instead of you saying I'm Christian, I'm Methodist, I'm Episcopalian, I'm Roman Catholic, I'm Kojic, I'm Baptist, I'm Free Will Baptist, I'm Southern Baptist, right? I'm Missionary Baptist, I'm AME, I'm Lutheran, et cetera, et cetera. What if you said I want to make sure that we have a foundation? What if we said we want to have a foundation? The foundation would be one, no cracks in it. You said you're working toward a care system for your elder and your youth. Yeah, that's great. And so are we. Right. Matter of fact, one of the only ways you can get rid of your social security number, you can write a letter saying you don't want to be a part of what goes on and you don't have to deal with benefits and privileges. But one of the ways you can get rid of your social security number is simple. You actually you have a community, you join a community that's like-minded, that has certain bylaws and things written in place, and make sure that they have a plan to be able to take care of the elderly. Once you do that, you don't even have to have a social security card anymore. Right? Like these are things like yes, I agree that you should pray. If you're talking about Buddhism and stuff like that, you're talking about chanting, right? And chanting to the window, the mirror of your soul, and all that stuff like that. Like that's fine, that's great, that's awesome, that sounds great, and it's stuff like that. But I live by a different canon, right? And I'm not trying to downplay yours, but in my canon, I don't like it when people do this, when they talk about faith and never talk about works, right? And never talk about works. This is a cultural context. right? But it's, I always say this: read your Bible, it'll bless you. People want to talk about faith, but never want to talk about works. It's not by works you're saved, yeah, but faith without works is dead. And you out here dying, your people out here dying, and you sitting out here making sure that you can run around a church on Sundays, which is not even the day you're supposed to worship the Most High. You don't even live according to your own canon. I can't take that mindset where you don't even live by what you say is more important than your people, because you say that's what's going to save your people. So you say your canon is more important than your people, but that canon actually says that you got to work for your people. Right? Like your whole thing is to say that your canon is more important than your people. I'm not worried about that. I'll just pray it away. But the question, did Yahshua, or who you call Yeshua, or who you call Jesus, etc., did he take care of his people? Did he feed people? Did he help people out when they were having a problem at their wedding? Did he deal with racism, woman at the well? Did he help people who needed to be healed? How you doing, Rocky? Did he make sure people got food? I'm sorry, I said food already. He did. Those were works. And we had a problem with that. How you doing there, somebody? How you doing? You said if we give up the Social Security card, what about the money we paid in? Then you get that back afterwards. Yeah, well, the money that you get paid, because even when you stop being, so even when you're sovereign, even if you go non-citizen national and stuff like that, they still take out your SSI. So they take out your SSI. So even if you can make the decision that you want it to be taken away. You don't have to, but that's your labor. Your labor is something that you're owed. Like, watch this. Even when you take your name off of the Social Security card or whatever, the number will still exist. So they'll still make money off of it. The money is not made just because of you. The money is made off the number. Your number represents, that fictitious person. But, if you still wanted to come and do something like that, you don't have to give up the number. You just make sure you just don't deal in benefits and privileges. But SSI is due to your labor. You're allowed to get paid your labor, right? That's like, for example, if I decided I was going to go and work, I don't know, for Popeyes or something, and I decided to go, I'm gonna work for Popeyes. I need to make some extra money or whatever. I become a manager at Popeyes, make what, 15 an hour, 20 an hour, whatever it is, and I make a little bit of money or whatever. Um, Popeye's still gonna pay me, even if I'm sovereign, even if I'm a non-citizen national, and they're gonna take money out for SSI. They won't take money out for taxes, but they'll take money out for SSI still. So you can choose that for yourself. I'm just saying, if you choose to get your name off of SSI, you can do that, but you're paid for your labor. SSI is an agreement that, because Social Security originally starts with people need help. So if people are out here and they need help, if you still want to have your SSI, your Social Security number. But as far as even if you took your name off, like if you still were working for somewhere, or you still decide to make money outside of the community, you still want to have your business, your jobs, etc., like your income, they still have the right to take SSI. You said you were blessed to feed Austin, Texas homeless shelter and several families. Oh, okay, that's great. You coming on and telling us we can watch it on YouTube? Okay, sure. If that's what you like people to do, right? You know, but once again, the whole thing is that the gaslighting. Like, we have a right, as we have a right, whether you believe it or not, we have the right to live however we declare to live. Matter of fact, the Declaration of Independence says what? When a people are being messed up by tyrants, basically, they have a right because of their opinion. That's what the Declaration of Independence says. They have to defend what they say. That they say that these people, now they were talking about particular people, but the goal is, can you be known as a citizen, or can you be known on the same level as a citizen? See, right? Because citizen used to be something different than what it means now. But when you're talking about a citizen, they even say, well, even if they're not a citizen, can you have a separate and equal right? So what does that mean? I've got to be able to separate myself from the system in order to be considered equal, or I got to just bow down as a citizen. But a lot of you don't bow down as a citizen with a capital C, if you even know the difference. You bow down as a citizen with a lowercase c, right? So so you need to find a way to be looked at eye to eye, and a lot of us are just subservient. Debt, slave, slave, debt, right? You can't be in debt without being a slave. You can't be a slave without being in debt, right? This so your life of sovereignty is trying to figure out how not to be in debt to the system. That's basically what sovereignty is. Can I feed my family? If I can feed my family, we're not in debt to the system. Can I own land? If I can own land, I can make it a allodial. I can make, I can write my own bylaws for my own land. I can deal with the UCC. I can make sure that people comprehend they can't mess with us. If you're police officers, you come on my land, you got to show me ID. You got to do this. You got to do that. Why? Because now I'm living sovereign, right? If my children don't have to go to school, I don't have to pay school taxes. That's the way that works. You can only be taxed for benefits and privileges. If I don't partake in those benefits and privileges, why would you tax me? Right? And it has to become a choice. It has to become a choice in the system. And what I'm starting to realize more and more, and it's no shade, but I'm just saying, like, we are people to where we don't trust the system, and at the same time, we trust it enough to not let go of it. Right? And what I'm starting to learn is that we're going to have to show people it can be done before people sew in. And that's unfortunate, right? But you're going to have some people that are day ones, always grinding, always doing what's necessary. And when we show people, then everybody's going to say, "Oh, it is. You can actually do that. You can actually live off the land. You can actually still have a signal to be able to do that. You're on the hat." But we're anti-system, but we're not so anti-system that we'll leave it, right? And the reason is because we don't really believe that we can make it without what the system says. The system says if you don't have a job, you won't be able to survive. And we believe them. I'm not saying get rid of your job, right? Consider the cost. If you don't have a vision plan yet and you don't have a mission plan, you definitely shouldn't be leaving something. And you should let these people keep taking care of you and helping you to take care of your family, right? But we believe that if we were to give everything we could, we believe that if 1,000 people came together and said we're going to come in on this land, we believe that that's a great thing, but we say, I need to see it first. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. Try the spirit to see if it's of Allah, right? Try this, or you say test the spirit by the spirit or whatever, right? See if it's real. I get it. You said there have been leaders in history that have not done so well at this. Just saying, Charlie Manson, for example. Sure. Am I telling you to go kill people? See what I'm saying? Even that is gaslighting. See the truth about gaslighting? I'm talking about a trauma. And you're telling me, what about Charles Manson? I don't even know the other guy, but what about the guy who had everybody drink the juice together and die, right? What about this person who did this? What about Kanye who looked like this? What about, do I even sound like that? By the way, even without saying, you said just saying history has not done well at this. Well, that's what you say. But I remember when we were segregated, we had more money. I remember when we had tribes and kingdoms and chiefs, people weren't feeling like they were being killed off. Jim Jones, yeah. By the way, was Jim Jones somebody from our culture trying to take care of us, or was he from somewhere else? Was Charles Manson trying to take care of us, or was that from somewhere else? I'm just saying, if you're going to compare me, or compare the people I'm talking to, or compare even our martyrs, or those prophets that they keep killing off, right, to Charles Manson, you definitely gaslighted. And then, see, this is the problem people have. Somebody talks about trauma and how do we get past it, and somebody immediately says, I'm going to tell you that you're going to be like Charles Manson. What does Charles Manson have to do with this? I've never taken people's blood and spelled out names and stuff like that. Talking about red rum and stuff like that. Go look at me and see if you can see red rum written all over the place. And I didn't have women that were running around the country once I was in prison trying their best to be able to see if they could have some kind of sexual relationship with me because they loved the fact that I was killing folk. You said they're both leaders. It's about leadership. No, Charles Manson was about fine. Yes. Okay. The devil is a leader. The Most High is a leader. Right. Bill Clinton is a leader. Right. And so is wow, forgetting my man's name from the Fugees. And so is Wyclef Jean. Right. Does Wyclef help his people? Yes. Does Bill Clinton help people in Haiti? Of course not. You're talking about a culture that they want to represent, and you're trying to present them as if they're the same thing. This is like when people talk about, hey, we should be away from kings. There are still kings. They just call themselves capitalists. And the person who has the most capital, they're the kings and queens of capitalism. So how are you going to compare your king and queen? Like Mansa Musa, he went and he gave out gold and he gave out silver and he built buildings and he made sure people had education. He did that all over the place. In Timbuktu, the leader of that who was a woman who founded Timbuktu. She gave us education on a level that has really rarely been seen ever since. Right? Moors who went over into Spain and to England and stuff like that, they ended up getting killed off because they educated people, but they were out there educating other people, killed them off, and then told them that they were bad, and therefore taught you that the word negro is a bad thing. And some of y'all don't even want to be black no more because you don't realize that black used to actually be one of the most ancient ways of saying a West African tribe that existed. That's a different thing. But see what I'm saying about the gaslighting? That's the truth about gaslighting, is here we are talking about making sure we can come together, and somebody's out there comparing that to Charles Manson. What does Charles Manson have to do with Mansa Musa? What does Charles Manson have to do with Malcolm X? What does Charles Manson and see, their whole thing was, I'm just talking about leaders. One's a leader, another one's a leader. You a lie. Charles Manson has never been my leader. And if you're going to compare him to my leader, then that means that you think that he's just as important as a leader as MLK, as Martin Luther King Jr., as I'm sorry, MLK, as Malcolm X, as Marcus Garvey, as Medgar Evers. Those are just the M's. See what I'm saying? Right? Like we're having an issue here because we don't want to make the main thing the main thing. But somebody who's trying to do that is somebody who's literally telling us, I'm not trying to really even listen or admit that there's a traumatic experience that I'm skipping over. And that's why your trauma cannot be dealt with. As I said earlier, your trauma is always attached to gaslighting. Jim Jones knew that he was going to have a bunch of people kill themselves. And guess what, though? Jim Jones didn't kill himself. Y'all know that? I don't even know as much about the situation as y'all do, right? It's a little bit past my generation when all that stuff happened. I mean, I was around for the end of that as far as how that affected your Christian communities and stuff. But at the end of the day, like Jim Jones, real talk, Jim Jones, hear what I'm about to say. Jim Jones, real talk, he killed off a bunch of black folk and made sure he survived. That's the leadership you want to compare MLK and Malcolm X to, who had their blood on the street? Or I'm sorry, blood on the hotel room and then smothered in the hospital, and then blood all over the inside of an auditorium, which the CIA was on the top floor above it. You said it's tragic, but you can hear their logic of wanting to be done with Earth. Who says that we want to be done with Earth? See what I'm saying? Help me out here. They were being targeted by the CIA. Okay. Whose logic? See, this is where we got to get it real. Let's have a real conversation. I love the conversation. At least you're being honest. But I don't think you see that you have a different context. Hear what I'm saying? Who's worried about being done with the earth? Whose logic is that? That's not ours. Who are you representing? And why are you asking me to represent a point that's not ours? You see what I'm saying? Right? This is gaslighting. I'm telling you what the trauma is. You're telling me that my recollection of it is not correct. And then you're telling me that I need to agree with the person who abused me. Like, who are you talking about? And no offense, but I'm just saying, like, see, we gotta let's make this real. Who are we having a conversation about? And I'm sorry, we lost. You got phone call. Gosh. That's the one thing about using your phone is it messes up the signal. Okay, sorry about that, Sean. Somebody tried to call, right? But who are we talking about? You see what I'm saying? Who are we talking about? I'm not done with the earth. Now there are Christians that are done with the earth, sure. You said Jim Jones people, okay. Am I part of that? Am I even a Christian? Like, who are we talking about? See, this is okay. So we're not going to deal with the fact, and that's okay. At this point, I think I've given you ample opportunity to actually like listen. At this point, I don't think you want to listen or actually want to do it. You're so busy gaslighting that now it's coming off as like if you're not careful, it's definitely cognitive dissonance showing up because. And if you're not careful, it looks like Dunning-Kruger effect. I think I get what you're trying to say, but to act like Jim Jones is a leader and therefore Malcolm X is a leader, so I'm gonna put them together, right? And now you're saying like, oh, they led them blindly and stuff like that, and they just led them and stuff like that, and blah blah into death. Like, so Malcolm X led us blindly. I mean, what's the correlation? Is there any? There's no evidence of what you're saying to say that I have to say Martin. I mean, fine. Or do we get to say that about George Washington then? Like, let's just be honest. Let's just have honest conversation. You okay? You can't tell me that you're not contextualizing when you say, well, they're both leaders. See what I'm saying? Like we're being dishonest now. Now you're just arguing for the sake of arguing versus having argument for at least apologetic reasoning. You know, like that's and we're not even having actual conversation at this point. And I try to open it up. I try to open it up. I legit try to open it up for conversation. And we can't have conversation because it's about, oh nope, see, you guys are this and that, and now you're the same thing. You literally said that we basically sound, or you didn't literally say this, I'm sorry. You were working towards and you use language to ensure that you said that basically the leaders that I was talking about are the same as Jim Jones and the same. Actually, you didn't even mention Jim Jones. You mentioned Charles Manson. You were saying that our leaders are the same as Charles Manson. That's what you were doing. That's dangerous. It's very dangerous, right? But once again, that's gaslighting. You begin to gaslight yourselves. I don't know if you're black, white, or whatever, but you're not careful, you'll gaslight yourself. You'll gaslight humanity. Like, what kind of argument is that? See where our people go if you're not careful. This is what somebody's put in us, is for us to argue things that aren't even sensical. Like the burden of proof on that is not even on me. It's on those that came before us. Tell me the messages that Charles Manson gave that are similar to Martin Luther King Jr.'s messages. Charles Manson said that he was the Christ at one point. We're just saying things and we're not careful about them. And it's a sad position to be in when we're just saying things without actual context. You're contextualizing, even though you said you weren't, if you're still listening, you're contextualizing, but you have no context. And that's a dangerous place to be. Right? It's dangerous to try and talk about freeing the people, but you trying to compare your people to Charles Manson. If it's even your people, not even sure. That's a dangerous spot for us to be in. Right? Even if you say you don't believe in any higher power, any spirituality, etc., that's fine. Or, at least for you, it's fine. Right? I'm not here to argue with you about that. I'm here to give you our contextual context, right? I'm telling you why we believe, haven't been led as we believe. But to argue straight up that Charles Manson is on the same level as MLK. Well, even with a cult just means a culture, right? So you can say he was a cult leader. That's the way of trying to say that what he had was smaller means that it has to be a cult, and that's what a lot of people do. They even do that with us, right? We don't have 100,000 people. We don't have millions of people that say that they are coming out with our belief system, even though there are nowadays. But you don't have this. You don't have as much money. Blah blah. So you're smaller. You're just a cult. Well, a cult means a culture. But just because I'm small doesn't mean that I'm doing the same thing that another small group of people did. I mean, heck, you guys have small groups of Navy SEALs that you guys send into other people's places. and they kill people off all the time, and y'all don't care about it. You don't say anything about that. It's a very bad place for us to be in. You said, is it gaslighting about our diet? Gaslight? Well, yeah, I mean, we're being gaslit about our diet. You don't have to be vegan at all. I mean, it might be better for you, but even if you're going to be vegan, make sure you know about proteins. A lot of people don't even talk about proteins and different things that you're going to need in your body. I know some people would even go by the Dr. Sebi route and say that proteins don't even exist, but that's why a lot of people who are vegans, they actually live unhealthy after a while, because you got to make sure that whatever plants you're eating, you're supplementing your diet. There are a lot of things that you're getting from meat just because, those animals actually eat natural foods. Some of them. A lot of y'all are now eating from animals that only eat stuff that's fake too. Oh, thank you, Keisha. Appreciate it. Right, but yeah. So gaslighting is something that's important for us to recognize, and it's important for us to start chopping it off, using that quaff. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, that quaff or quav, right? Quav or quaff or quaff, we would say, but quav. That that acts to prepare to cut it down, to say like enough is enough of that. Like gaslighting is something that's dangerous. It's causing people to be led astray all the time because you're not even looking for truth. You live in a false reality, which means you have to come up with ways to gaslight and to protect the false reality. You've been trying your best to protect the false reality. Is it your nature to have black men versus black women? Is that our nature? It has become a lot of our creed, but is that your nature? When do we cut that off? When do we say enough is enough? Thanks for being part of the community, Stella Dallas. Right? Like when do we cut that off? Hard cut off. Like when do we stop dealing in that? Okay, Tree by Living Water, have a great day. When do we stop living in that? Your sons and daughters are affected by that every day. When they look on different social media outlets and they have to keep hearing us go back and forth at each other as if we don't need each other, and they grow up thinking that they don't need each other either, and now you're starting to and now you're trying to figure out, why do we act like we don't need each other? You've been telling each other you don't need each other basically since like World War II-ish, somewhere around there. And you still, even though you were busy saying why you didn't need each other, you still were living with each other until the crack epidemic came out in the 80s, and that's when y'all stopped living with each other. Yeah, just in the 80s, not that long ago. I know when people want to act like that was so long ago and you should get past it. That's a generation. 40 years, one generation ago. Y'all still lived in the same house. You still thought that mothers and fathers need to stay together and be married. And you didn't think that, hey, just because we don't get along, it's an excuse for us to get a divorce. Right? But we gaslight. Man, single mothers are awesome. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Are they supposed to be single mothers in our community? And what can we do to heal that? That's traumatic. I know we want to act like the reason why we give single mothers so much love is because through their trauma, they loved us. Thank you to every single mother on here. I appreciate you. May I say that again? Thank you to every single mother on here. I appreciate you. May I say it one more again? Thank you to every single mother on here. I appreciate you. Now that that's been said, should we have single mothers in our community? Not like we have now. Of course not. If two become one to produce the fruit, then why would you want the fruit to be raised by one out of the two? Y'all catch that? This is a mathematical equation. Catch what I'm saying? It's simple math. If two become one to produce fruit, then why would you want the fruit to be raised by one out of the two? If you got to have 2/1 to make one child, then how in the world are you trying to raise the child 1/2? Did you catch that? You say it's 2/1 end up equaling 1/1 to produce one fruit, but then you want the child to be produced 1/2 and make it equal one. Of course, your child is only being raised with half of what they're supposed to be given. If half of what was given to make them what they are is not even obtainable to the child. I know that there can be deaths. I know that there can be things that cause people to get divorces. Sure, but let's not act like that's the reason. The reason is because we've taken on somebody else's culture and we gaslight to protect that culture. To say that, hey, it's great. Hey man, Lil Wayne, he a great father. He got 75 children. I don't know how many children he got. He got a lot of children. Right? But Lil Wayne, he a great father though. He got all these children, this and that. He don't see them babies. He teaches them that it's okay to cuss people out and do things like that. He throws some money at their mama, or at least throws some money at their mama to take care of the child, and that's it. And we say, hey, he came on BET and he had all these babies under his arms, and he made sure that he shouted them out on BET. So he must be a great father. Where the mama at? And why does he have multiple mamas? And why are we uplifting that? I know, look, I apologize, Lil Wayne. If you hear this, you probably heard worse about yourself. But if you hear this later on at some point, I apologize. But real talk, we would call that being a hoe. If it was a woman, we sure would. We say, matter of fact, the way that he's dealt with some of these women and broke up their relationships with others, we call him a home wrecker. He said broken home children are more likely to create another broken home and rinse and repeat. Yeah. We would call him all those things. We would talk disgusted about him and everything. Look at the way that he does this. It must be something, man. You know what? If somebody shot at him, something does this, he probably deserved it. You see how he's a slut and blah, blah. That's what you would talk about if he was a woman. But because he's young Weezy, baby, you don't mind him doing any of it. And you know what's crazy? It's not just the men that don't mind him not doing anything. It's the sisters as well. Right? It's not the brothers that are buying up all Lil Wayne stuff only. It's y'all buying it up too. When do we make a declaration? When do we make the proclamation? When do we make the decision that certain things don't belong and stop gaslighting to get ourselves out of it? I don't like snitches. Snitches get stitches and stuff. True. Okay, we shouldn't need snitches because we shouldn't have people doing things that can be snitched on. This is when we have a problem. I'm not saying that people didn't put you in a position where you felt like there was no other alternative. That would be gaslighting. It's also gaslighting to say that, hey, I don't like a culture that has snitches, or I have a culture that I created that says you can't snitch. Simultaneously, though, I can't have you're saying that you can't have a culture that allows snitching, but you have a culture that allows things there for you to be snitched on. How you doing, Dennis? You said the same as our community gaslighting these teen moms with baby showers and praise. Yeah, and I mean I don't mind. I get what you mean. Yeah, and you're a sister, so I gotta listen to what you have to say on this. And forgive me for talking so fast. I'm trying to digest what you're saying. Um, I agree with you to a certain extent. I think we should support them. So maybe the baby shower should be more support, but I think that we should make it a point to say, even in the baby shower, like, hey, we're gonna help you to get on track. You're going to finish, if they're doing the school thing or whatever, you're going to finish school, you're going to get your degree. We're going to be watching over you. I'm going to watch your baby. She's going to watch your baby on this day. She's going to watch your baby on this day. But if we're going to watch your baby, we better not ever find out that you went to the club, blah, blah. I think that's more like what we're talking about, right? Like we agree with each other, right? I think that we should do those things. I think it should be okay. I think, like, see, y'all don't see, I'm in the law. So a lot of people don't want to deal in law, right? Yeah, communities raise children in Africa for sure. Raise them in other countries too. Sometimes raise them in the United States of America, but not really, because we move away from each other. If the baby's blessed because they are away from their family, so their family maybe can visit them every once in a while. You said we don't have to party and can bless without a celebration. I mean, if that's, I can see that. If that's what your goal is, like I said, I'll listen to it and kind of be quiet too, because it's a sister that's talking to me. you know, um, and so certain things I need to realize might be something I just need to listen to, and maybe later on after I get more information ask questions about. So I'll do so right now on that. However, even with what we're talking about, I'm just saying we have to make sure that, like, for example, getting back to what I was saying as far as law, what if you had a community where you were raising that said if you lay down with a girl, I don't care if she gets pregnant or not, if you take a young girl's virginity, she's your wife for the rest of your life. See, the culture is different. That used to be cultural. We laugh at shotgun wedding type things or whatever, but there's a lot of cultures. You better not lay down with some. You better not come into my community lay down with one of my daughters and think that you ain't gonna take care of her. That's why a lot of these fathers just try to protect their daughters, because they like, we know they ain't gonna take care of them. And if my daughter gets pregnant, if we find out that her virginity is taken, if she gets made fun of for the rest of her life, we're gonna be the guy that took it and left her with a child. Right? Like, where's going to be the stuff that's there? Like, in your culture, you don't even think that sex is marriage and marriage is sex, but that's the culture that you actually originally came from. They didn't look at walking down the aisle allowed you to become married. They realized that if you had sex, you were married. So therefore, like, and by the way, that's still the law. They just let that go because you're in such a perverted system that they don't even care if you keep breaking the law. But the law states if you don't consummate your marriage, then there is no marriage. Right? If you don't have sex, then there is no marriage, because sex is marriage. Marriage is sex. Marriage brings fruit. Marriage is an institution. Marriage allows other things. There are other things that come between the relationship between the two people who are married, but the two becoming one is the marriage. That is the culture. That is the reality. That is the mindset. That's the way that works. Yeah, it's even a contract. Right? You're signing, and basically a lot of you do your contract through the state. So you sign your contract and say, state, we want you to be over our marriage when we consummate. The state says no problem. And then that way, any babies that come out of y'all, we'll take care of that too. And if y'all decide to divorce, we'll tell you who gives what amount of money to them babies, because we own all that, because you signed up for marriage. Your sex, you literally said that your sex becoming one belongs to us. That's how law works, natural law. Right? That's the way your law works. Kingdom law, universal law. I'm sorry, kingdom law, marital law, universal law, natural law, substantive law, public-private law, common law, maritime law, law of admiralty, law of equity. That's how that works. Right? So you can even make up your own contract. You know, you can write your own contracts out. You can write your own contract. People do it all the time. There are plenty of celebrities that either have sex parties or just have dates with women, and then at the end of the date they want to have sex, and they have you sign agreements. Y'all never heard of that? And it says you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, right? We will wear a condom. If you get pregnant somehow without the condom is defective. Sometimes they tell you that they signed away their rights to the child, and you agree to it. They're telling you this, that, the third. Like, you know, whatever happens in the bedroom, it gets to happen there, whatever. They even some. I'm telling you how wild this is. Some of the and it's not even wild. I guess you got to protect yourself nowadays because there's so much perversion out there. So you got to protect yourself through the in the perversion. But they, you know, on the contract, it might even say stuff like, "Hey, do you like being choked? Do you like this position? What orifices do you want to be used?" Like all that stuff, so that if anything gets done, there ain't gonna be no Kobe situation. Where Kobe, who cheated on his wife, granted, but Kobe, who wasn't guilty of raping that girl, they had anal sex, and she got, basically, Kobe was big. He's a tall guy, right? He was 6'7", right? So Kobe ends up messing her up. She has to get checked. They find out about it. They find out, she starts freaking out because she thinks maybe her family's gonna find out that she's with this black guy. And so what does she do? What does she do? She literally says, he raped me. Now, he shouldn't have been. Now, once again, accountability. Let us not gaslight. Kobe, what you doing cheating on your wife with that much regularity to where you got caught up like that? Right? Let's not gaslight that part. Now that we're not finished with that, let's not gaslight that. Hey, that's why some of these brothers out here who are out here having sex, and stuff. That's why they ask questions like, can you sign this contract, this and that, or whatever, because that's what the system does. Now you got to come out that system, so that starts being your mindset. But if you live in that system, you can't be mad with the brother or sister, by the way. Sisters, y'all do that too. You can't be mad with a brother or sister that says you're going to sign this contract. Right? So we try to get people to do marriage not just marriage certificates, but obviously we try to make sure people do their own marriage contracts. We try to make sure that people do their own marriage um, constitutions and write out specific laws and statements. This is what will happen, won't happen, etc. It's something that should be there because we don't live by law. Y'all just think, hey, go ahead, have sex, and y'all do whatever. So the world is reflecting it. And let's not gaslight that. Let's not be like, oh, you're slut shaming. No, no. Like, is your body designed to have all these different men inside of you? Is your body designed to have all these women literally covering you? You're being covered by the woman that you're inside of, literally. You're entering into her garden. Are all gardens pure? Are you designed to make sure that you till everybody's garden? When I wake up in the rising, I don't take care of everybody else's land. I don't take care of everybody else's garden. You take care of your own. And you're making covenants with wickedness, right? Real talk. You said we have contracts married in the military for our children. You know, things you didn't know you needed. Yeah, you know, like we're dealing with stuff that's not correct. Right. I don't wake up. You don't wake up in the rising and go, man, I can't wait to take care of everybody on the block's yard. You take care of your own. You might give suggestions to somebody else's yard, but you ain't taking care of the garden. You got one garden that you're supposed to tend. And you got all these brothers out here trying to tell you how they're the catch, how they're the alpha male, how they are better than these betas and these deltas out here, how they are more powerful, how they're greater, how they should bow down, how they disregard their women, how all these women should bow down to them, how if you're going to come on my podcast or on my show or this and that, then you should be willing to lay down with me, this and that, or whatever. You got all these people talking this stuff. Yeah, I'm the prize. Come and give me. I'm the prize, bro. What is your mission? If you have no mission, then you have no she has no responsibility to be in submission because she ain't in submission. It ain't about you, it's about the mission that you have. Where is your mission for her to be in submission to it? Because you should be in submission to it before you meet her. And that's the problem, even our sisters. Why are you not looking for men that are in their work? I didn't say a man with a job, a man with a work. What is he going to do with the community? What is he going to do? If he's not doing anything for the community, why do you think he would do something when y'all create your own community? Did you catch that? That's a bar right there, Holy Spirit. Thank you. Right? Like if he won't do anything for his community when you met him, then you're saying you want to get with him and create a community, and then you were expecting him to do something for that community y'all created together. He doesn't feed people who need help now. When your babies need help, you think he's going to kick into a different? He might, but he might not. Because what's his default setting? See, when you get a computer, when you get a MacBook, when you get a Mac, when you get a laptop, when you get an iPhone, when you get an Android, when you get whatever you have, it has what's called a default setting. And you can add whatever you want to it. You can add different programs, and prayerfully that helps it to get better. You might even be able to add memory to it. You might be able to make sure that you have stuff that you can do on the cloud through it. There's a lot of stuff. You can get all types of apps and programming and things. You can get people to help you to learn how to use it again. But guess what? If you ever need to go back to that default setting, even if you can add everything back to it, if some certain things happen, every once in a while, that computer got to go back to the default. And if his default is, I don't care about nobody, then when tough times come, he ain't gonna care about nobody. If anything, you got to reprogram the default. But you keep finding men that their default is unworthy. You keep finding men that their default is little boy mentality. You keep finding men that their default is I'm not a husband. You keep finding men whose default is I'm not even a father to my own children. Right. And even if they're not allowed, like at least let it be you're not allowed to see your children because you're dealing with baby mama drama or something. You don't even look for that. You just like, oh, I don't even care about none of that. I'm gonna change him, this and that. But that's his default. So even if you add the other stuff, he's gonna go back to the default. And you can't blame the man for bringing him into something when he never showed you that his default was as what you needed. His default should be your bare minimum. Don't raise him to your bare minimum. His default should be your bare minimum. Yeah, if a man can't lead his family, he shouldn't be leading the assembly. If he desires the office of a pastor, he desires the excellent work. However, he should be the husband of one wife. and not have his family be perfect, but he should at least have his children in subjection. That means that your children will make mistakes, but at least they should be what? In subjection. They should have respect. My family ain't perfect, but my child respects. If see, and if you can't handle that, and even in our culture, by the way, you can't even be a rabbi till you're 30 years old. All these people out here talking about I'm 19 years old and I'm preaching and blah blah. You can preach, I guess. You can teach a little lesson, but real talk, you ain't ready to be no rabbi till you're 30. That's why even Yahshua himself, the Messiah, he said, "Oh yeah, I got to wait till 30, and then I'll go ahead and get to the water." Sorry, Ladybug. We've had some issues with Signal in general today. They tried to take us down today. They didn't like what we were talking about, but that's the truth. Somebody gonna get this. Hopefully, this is blessing somebody and helping you to see things different. Like the truth about gaslighting. Your trauma keeps coming with gaslighting. Bar mitzvah or bar mitzvah. A bar mitzvah says that that's when you are officially, we say you are a adult male, right? As far as we've trained you to be an adult male, because this is how it works. We've raised in threes, except for the first one, right? So basically, ages 0 to 3, we train you to be either. Well, let me just deal with boys, right? We say that you're a male, right? Ages 4 to 6, then we say, all right, we're gonna wean you from your mama, right? You not just from breastfeeding, that can already have been done, but we're weaning you from her where you won't be a mama's boy as much. Why? Because ages 7 to 9, you will be an apprentice. Whatever your father does, that's what you'll do. So daddy's now responsible for teaching you. But ages not 10 to 12, now we want to make sure that we get into full education, right? Like we want to make sure that we give you all the stuff we can, even if we need to pay somebody else outside of us or whatever. But your education is our responsibility. Now, ages 13 to 15, we're teaching you what it is to be an adult male. Right, but then we don't stop there. Ages 16 to 18, then we teach you what it is to be a husband. But we don't stop there. Ages 19 to 21, we're going to teach you what it is to be a father. Then once you pass all those things, we say, okay, we're going to send you out with your inheritance. Right. And so you might get your own version of our family business going. You got your own land now. We're giving you principles. We've taught you all this stuff. You can take what we've done and you can be greater than what we are. Awesome. And while you're out there, while you're in your work, you might find your wife. And when you find your wife, you'll find a constitutional thing, or what you call a good thing, and you'll be able to obtain favor from Adon, from the Lord. But when you find her, you still got to bring her back what? To the family. And we got to talk to her family. And we got to actually do a certificate. In our culture, we don't do a certificate of marriage. We actually do a certificate of betrothal, right? So when you say you're engaged, we actually have you fill out a certificate. Then once you're engaged, she goes and prepares herself, and her father and mother prepare her on her last journey of being a wife, because she's had a very similar journey in being trained as we do. So they're going to make sure that she's being trained on how to be a wife, especially for that specific husband she's going to have. That husband, he now goes back to his father's land. He builds an add-on to the property. He's already got his own property. He's already been given his inheritance. He's already got his own business. Now he goes back to his father's property. He actually builds what's called a mansion, an add-on to his father's house, so that the father's family can take care of him and his bride when they come together for this first few years, and also they can help to take care of children that they're going to have. And then once they're ready to go, hey man, go ahead and enjoy yourself, but you always got a place here, literally a whole place here. Not like what we say now, you always got a place here, and hopefully you'll have a bedroom. No, you built a whole house. That's why in the Bible it says no man knows the day nor the hour except the Father. And it says, beloved, let not your heart be troubled. Believe, if you believe in the Father, also believe in me. In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it was not so, I would not have told you. Right? It also says in the Bible, it talks about the 10 virgins and making sure you prepare yourself for your husband when he comes back, because the father is the one who looks over his son building a home for his family, and the father who's now talked to the wife. Right? She's already a wife, pre-qualified. Who finds a wife? So he's talked to the wife. He's talked to the wife's family. He's talked to his wife. He knows what his son is going to need to build for his daughter-in-law and for his grandchildren coming up, and he starts to look over meticulously everything that his son is building for his family that's going to come together in that mansion. And then when he says, okay, son, now you're finished building, then the son and the daughter come together. We have a celebration. They become one. right? The father of the bride, he grabs the sheet that should have her virgin blood and his sperm, they're both of their blood on the sheet, and that's the contract. And if any time that they want to try and get a divorce, they got to come see the father of the bride, who has to say, y'all can't get a divorce unless you show me something that's more powerful than this sheet with this blood where both of your purity was taken, right? So he takes that as contract, and the father of the groom, he takes in the family to help them to be able to come better. And the father of the bride, he actually gives a little money too, because that's why, like, father of the bride, still to this day, they're supposed to pay for the wedding. Well, back then, the father, remember the father of the groom, he's already given his son his inheritance and said, get yourself ready for a wife, right? He said to the wife, but the wife, who is um, still living at her father's house, she's making money, do all types of stuff, but her father saves her money up for when she gets married. When she gets married, he then gives the family that money. So they're taking care of each other in all these different ways. That's the culture. That's the mindset. Even when you read your Bible, that's the stuff that's there. Now we don't even worry about that. Now you have sex, you do all this stuff. You're dating. By the way, dating is just something that's dated. Dating is like if you go to the store, you got expiration date on milk. That means that you got to drink that milk by that expiration date. You treat your relationships the same way. You go out on a date. That's nice. We'll eat together. Maybe we'll like each other. Maybe we won't. Oh, that was kind of nice. Okay, I guess we can do that again. Maybe this time I'll give him a kiss. So at least he'll be interested or she'll be interested. Oh, okay, cool. That date was all right. Okay, well, maybe we'll go out again. This time we'll actually do something that's more this and that, right? And you keep thinking to yourself, as long as they do this, we can see each other. As long as you do this, we can see each other again. That's how you treat it. But marriage is till death do us part, right? Different culture. Yeah, when it is heartbreaking when we're never taught these things like that. So why aren't these steps taught to us now? First time hearing these steps? Yeah, because a lot of us just miss don't even look at it. Thank you, Henry. A lot of us aren't even taught to look at it. Once again, we gaslight. We say, man, God put that together. But do you know that the Most High never chooses your wife? Did you know that? He didn't even choose. He in a sense chose Adam's wife, but he didn't really do it, right? Even Adam was given a mission by the Most High. See, man has to have a mission. Look for a man in his work, in his mission. And he said, Yahweh says, name all the animals from you. So Adam names the animals, and he's perfect at that point. So everything he says, and he walks with Yah in the cool of the day. So everything he says, it would have been as the Most High says. But then Adam looks around as he's naming the animals. He goes, man, you know what? Everything else has a help me down here. And even though I have everything in me, I can't really do what they do because I don't have anything on my level. Yahweh says, see, in your work, you saw the necessity for a wife. You saw you need to help me. Then he puts him to sleep. Then he does the surgery. Then he, you know, builds this great creation that we call wombed man or woman, right? Or Ashach. Then he looks at Hava, Ashach, or Eve, this woman, and he looks at her and he says, wow, that's bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She's me, but I need to become one with her. For this cause, therefore, will a man leave his mother and father? He's speaking over his own children. The Most High didn't speak that. He did. He said, man, I see why I needed that now. I choose to be attached to this. He said, now my children, everybody comes out of me for this cause, they'll leave their mother and father and they'll cleave to their wife. That's the closest you get to the Most High choosing your wife. He doesn't really choose wives, right? He doesn't really choose wives. I know we're gonna. If you look for the exception, fine. You look long enough, you might find the exception to the rule. But the Most High, he didn't really choose why. He tells you how to choose one, and then he agrees with it if she is in fact a wife. He doesn't really choose husbands. He agrees with if that's a husband or not according to his word. But you have free will, right? You said you don't need a wife if you already have a mission. I wouldn't say that. I guess, well, that might be exactly the way to say. I don't know, but like I agree with you overall on the overall statement. Like the man is on his mission. He's in his work, and so his work. Like you ever seen some of these guys? They're making a lot of money. They're doing a lot of different things, and all of a sudden, I'm sorry, he did it for Adam because he was his authority and father. Sure. Yeah, but he realized that Adam needed a spouse, somebody on his level, right? But he did. But even Adam still had the right to be able to choose and not choose. Remember, he decided, he spoke that he would cleave to his wife. He didn't have to agree. He has free will, right? But we do this thing where it's like, oh yeah, the Most High, he's going to show. Look, you need to know these principles. One of the greatest things that Yahweh has, right, or everything about him is great, but he has wisdom, right? So if you're talking about wisdom is not wise for somebody to say this, that, whatever, right? The Most High chooses. Now, did I say that parents do not choose for their children? No. And I'm not saying that parents shouldn't choose for their children. I'm not against arranged marriage, right? But it's not my child. But I'm just telling you, I'm not against it. There's nothing biblically against it, right? But what I'm saying, though, is that the Most High, he doesn't come down to fathers and mothers, even if we're going to talk about arranged marriage, he doesn't come down to fathers and mothers and be like, yo, tell them they have to marry that one. They look at what their children need, the works. It's not just about faith only. They look at the works of their children and they say, what will my child need to make sure that they're whole? Abraham told his servant, hey, please go out and find somebody for Isaac. Gave him a list. This is what you know what Isaac is, you know what Isaac does, you know him. Go out there and make sure that my son's taken care of. Because Abraham knew Isaac better than Isaac knew himself. See, once again, though, we got to talk about culture, relationships. See, if we're not careful, we try to gaslight our way out of what we're saying here, out of what's culturally there. You can look at the book of Tobit as well, of course, right? But he has this relationship, and he has a position. That means that Abraham was allowed. Abraham was allowed because he had that lane. Abraham had the lane of a father, and that meant Sarah had the lane of a mother. Abraham had the lane of a husband, which meant that Sarah had the lane of a wife. Abraham had the lane of a man, which meant that Sarah had the lane of a woman. We don't even have proper lanes for our men and women. I want you to teach my children how to be a man, but you better make sure you do that. Well, time out, time out, time out, time out, time out. What is this according to? According to what you think, or according to what a man is? Because I'm the man. Now, I'm not saying you can't tell me anything, but just real talk. If you want me to train them on what I am, then shouldn't you allow what I am to come to the table? Well, we say, see, even in that, we say it's too far removed, and it is. But the question is, are we willing to put in the work to put it back? If not, we're just going to keep doing the same thing, getting the same results. Are we willing to put in? We can put in the work. Faith without works is dead. We have faith that this stuff is real, but we got to put in some works. You said Yah will send a helpmeet in his divine time, and been over 4 years, just loving Yah and self and raising your children. Yeah, and by the way, he might send one, or I mean, to say that he sends one, sure, okay, we can go there, like, you know, but the focus is not. See, watch this. The focus is not on, and this is going to sound crazy now that I'm saying it, but if you're looking for marriage, the focus is not on marriage. The focus is on you, because the person's becoming one with you. Yeah, and that's the definition of insanity, right? Like, the focus is on you. I want tall, dark, and handsome. I mean, okay, first of all, what does tall, dark, and handsome mean? Does that mean they're gonna love you? You just want tall, dark, and handsome. Like, why is that? What are those three requirements? Number one. But even if you get tall, dark, and handsome, okay, fine. You got tall, you got dark, you got handsome. That sounds great and everything. All right. What are you gonna give the tall, dark, and handsome? And this is when people get mad. Or I want a girl who is thick and she's obedient, subservient, and all that stuff. Well, why do you want somebody who's a servant and not a wife? But okay, whatever. See, because a wife will serve you, but she shouldn't be your servant. But whatever. If that's what you feel you need, fine. What do you have that deserves that? What you want is a doll. You don't want a wife. I've dated a doll before. I went out with a doll before. I tried to. Matter of fact, I wasn't really trying to date. I was trying to see if she was wife material. And I went out with the doll. And when I say I went out with a doll, her family treated her like a doll. Her father didn't let her do anything. She wasn't really able to allowed to get a job because they gave her money. So they gave her like this fake job and barely paid her anything. She could not do anything for anybody else. She couldn't help me with problems. She couldn't do anything else. But if I had said jump, she would have said how high. If I treated her like crap, she would have just taken it. She thought that I was nice because I opened doors, and then thought that I was the Most High Himself because I treated her with honor and respect. But I couldn't stay around because I couldn't get a wife. I couldn't get somebody who was willing to actually talk with me through situations that I could cry on their shoulder. When I needed to cry on their shoulder, when I had family members that were dying and stuff, they were sitting up there. They were like, just keep loving on me. Just keep doing this and this. And look, maybe I wasn't strong enough. I'm not even saying she's a bad person. I just might have been strong enough for the person that's there to be able to do that with her. I couldn't do it. Y'all be swearing up and down that y'all want trophy wives and stuff like that. Y'all swear up and down y'all do. I'm telling you, I had somebody that could have been. I ain't want it. Right? I ain't want it. It's not worth it. How you doing, T's 2 cents? It's not worth it. Right? Like, I needed a wife. I can't. I'm so thankful that I found the greatest. As far as I'm concerned, I tell you all this all the time: the greatest wife to ever exist, the greatest woman that ever exists, the honorable mind who lives a life that's able to be honored. I've been in relationships with people to where like it's abusive and stuff like that, and you're trying to make it work, even though it's abusive and things of that nature. Right? I've been in relationships where you gaslit. I've been in relationships where stuff like that. And I get it. I try my best not to, but I even get it. There's a lot of sisters who will come to me and be like, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? What do you think about so-and-so being a husband? And why? Because they may not have a father in their life. They look at me as like a spiritual father of sorts. And they're asking me questions because they're like, yo, that should be something that's there, that somebody should have been there in that relationship, that somebody should have had that lane. I praise Yah that I had motherly figures, and I still have my sister involved and stuff like that to help when I found mine. Because I look to a woman to see if that's a great woman. But we don't even have lanes for mothers and fathers. What is the lane for a father if a mother's supposed to be celebrated on Father's Day? Think about these things. I'm not saying you're evil if you've done these things. I'm not saying that you shouldn't give love and stuff like that to a mother. But think about it, for real, for real. If you are a father, but people say, well, mothers who are single should be treated like fathers on Father's Day. What is your lane? That's the tip of the iceberg. That's the icing on the cake. I'm talking about icing on cake. We ain't talking about the main ingredients. We ain't talking about the flour. We ain't talking about eggs. We're not even talking about coloring, whatever you're using. I'm saying if we don't even have it in our mind that a father is a sacred place, how in the world do you produce fathers that are sacred, that believe in the sacred truths and vows? If you can have two women and both women can be just as much father as they are mother, how do we have great fathers then? You said your father's example gives you guidance as to what a husband should be. Amen. Yeah. To that, thanks to the Most High for husbands. Yeah. Like if your father, just you see what I'm saying? Like help me out. If we say that two men can come together and they can raise the child the same way that the mother and the father can, then what's the point of a mother? It used to be so important about the lane that you were in that people would say things like, sometimes I feel like a fatherless child. It was important to know the lane, to have somebody who was in their lane to be able to run the race for you and pass the baton to you. Right? Like it's important. There's things, look, much love to every mother on here again, but there's nothing like having a father. There's nothing like having a father as a son. There's nothing like knowing, oh man, about I'm feeling this way, that, and now you got a father that steps in. No, son, that ain't real right there. I've been there. I messed up on that. You don't need to be part of that. There's nothing like having a father that says, man, your grandfather had that in him, but I know what that is. Don't do that. There's nothing like a father saying, hey, look, that one over there, she ain't what you think she is. right? That she's showing everything, but she ain't gonna be around. She gonna take from you. She ain't gonna develop you. She's not gonna love you. She's not gonna honor you. She's not asking you about mission. But that one over there, that's one who's asking about mission because she wants to be in submission. So she's trying to help you to develop. She gonna help you when your business grows or whatever. She ain't gonna want no credit, and you're gonna want to give her all the credit. That one over there, she gonna want all the credit, and she might take your stuff. Like you need a father does those things. There's nothing like a mother who says this is what Titus chapter 2 tells us. This is what we do when we get older. This is how we operate. This is how we love our husbands. This is why we submit to them. But if they get out of pocket, this is when I'll speak back to them. Right? We let them spank our children, but if they spank our children and it gets to be abusive, we step in and we fight for our children. Right? There's nothing like somebody being in their lane and showing you even the fellowship of a father and a mother. Right? The function, even that's a great point. The dysfunction is us not knowing how this stuff functions. If you don't know the function of a parent, then you're not going to be able to be a parent. And we come from dysfunction. We keep looking at the world. We keep looking at the school system. Raise my babies. Your babies need to be raised by mothers and fathers. They need to be raised by husbands and wives. We even give cognitive dissonance towards that, and we gaslight towards that. And the truth about gaslighting today, let us not act like we don't gaslight about the fact, like we talked about earlier. Well, he's a great father, but he ain't no husband. But he's a great father, but he ain't no husband. It don't matter. He's a great father. So your child is growing up with the love of a father that's incomplete and never knowing what a husband should be, whether they are a male, it should become what their father is, or they are a female and they will marry their father. Right? Train the child in the way they should go. And that even has to do with your finances. If you read the verse that comes right after it. But you're doing all these different things and you're not even willing to have this conversation. You're not even willing to think about those things. Why? Because it's not even something you're supposed to think about in this system. It's not even something you're supposed to think about in this system. So when you think about these things, when you're looking at these things, like you have to think about these things correctly. Yeah, and it is backwards. You're absolutely right. He's a great father. He's a great dad. Well, where's mom at? Oh, well, they ain't together no more. So what's that child learning? And I'm not acting like I'm innocent of these things myself or whatever. I'm just saying we gotta at some point, when does the generational curse end? Like when do we say enough is enough? When do we say somebody gotta stop this? This is foolishness. How do you even know what a father of a nation is and you don't have a father in your own home? But when we end it, that's a great point. So when we gonna put in the works? We got faith in this stuff. We love to talk about it. People love to say hallelujah about this on a Sunday and all this, if that's what you still do. But where's your works? You said loving self first, know self, learning many things about self. I don't search for a man, focus on y'all and your children. Well, that's great. I'm not saying focus on the man, right? But what I'm saying is that even so, watch this. Even if you're single or whatever, or even if you're at some point going to have a husband or a wife or whatever it is, who's your first wife? Who's your first spouse? It's the Most High, anyway. So even in that, that's what I'm saying. Before we got married, before we laid down, before we had sex, we were supposed to already be pre-qualified for the marriage. Pre-qualified means you should already be a husband. You should already be a wife. You should already know what a husband is. You should already know what a wife is. And you should have somebody to help you to look over those things and to say, hey, can you look over this too with me to make sure that I'm making the correct decision? You said if you were to be a mom, you would want to be the mother you never had. I mean, that's great. So if you never had her, you got to go to something that's a source of motherhood. And I'm not trying to come against you. I'm saying I legit, like that's legit. That's great. Now the question is, what is a mother? What is the culture of a mother that you're looking for to become? See, when you said you never had a mother, okay, what is the motherly example? Who is it? Is it spiritually inclined? Is it something that causes you to wake up? Is it causes you something to be greater? Is it something that's going to make sure that you give natural medicine to, natural food to? Are you going to breastfeed? Like, what is you see what I'm saying? What is the culture of it? Because that child's going to be affected by every single decision that you make as a mother. My child is affected by every decision I make as a father. I tell you guys this all the time. Even these videos that you guys see, on YouTube when we record them and we come on TikTok and stuff, and these books that are written and different music that's out, that's not just for y'all. Like if something were to happen to me, my son has endless amounts of things to watch from his father to be able to see how to become better than his father, because his father didn't know these things when he was his age. You see what I'm saying? Like so even in that, like this stuff that I'm doing is not just for you. Every decision I make is affecting him. Every decision I make is affecting my wife. So this is not just for y'all, this is for them. Right? you know, like this I'm sowing into the kingdom, but that means that I have to do it first through my family, because any man who can't even take care of his family, the Bible says, is worse than an infidel. So this stuff that's there, yeah, it's great that y'all get this and blah blah, but this is something for my family. I love y'all. Y'all my SOC family. Y'all are my diaspora family. Y'all are my human family, whatever the case might be. Much love to everybody. But ain't nobody going to get love like the Honorable Maya. Ain't nobody going to get love like my son. Ain't nobody going to get love like this family, because that's how it works. If you desire the office of a pastor or whatever you want to call it, a bishop, etc., you desire an outstanding work, right? But first, you must be the husband of one wife. If you can't be the husband to one wife, stop talking about being the pastor to a people. But people are getting this twisted, right? Pastor Jamal Bryant, everybody has great stuff, and I was kind of conflicted, but he told some truths when he was talking about voting and stuff like that, and how they try to pass on the whole Herschel Walker thing and everything on people and everything, and that sounded all great. And everybody was sitting there, yeah, man of God, yeah, preach it, teach it, and all that stuff, right? Problem is, though, is that if y'all know about Jamal Bryant, see, I know Jamal Bryant from Baltimore. I know Baltimore Jamal Bryant. Y'all know the Jamal Bryant that took over for Bishop Eddie Long in Georgia. And I know that down too, because, I spent a lot of time down in Georgia. So I know that situation too, somewhat. But I know, and I'm not saying I know him personally, but I know of and been around Pastor Jamal Bryant up in Baltimore. And Pastor Jamal Bryant in Baltimore, who built a church from scratch that became kind of sort of like a mega church and was doing a lot of stuff. I know that Jamal Bryant, that he didn't do anything for his community. See, I know that Jamal Bryant. And it's difficult for me to hear him talking about the word of Yah, because I know that behind the scenes Jamal Bryant. And a lot of y'all know this is public information. I'm not actually putting them out there. I'm saying this is public information. Like, I know about that Jamal Bryant that never paid child support for his child that he had out of wedlock. I know that Jamal Bryant. I know the Jamal Bryant that left his church. He said he would never leave and promised him he would never leave, and then went down to Georgia anyways. Right? I know the Jamal Bryant that had many sexual partners, and everybody just let it slide because he sounded great when he preached the message, and he can preach. Boy, can he preach! But I'm telling you, like, it's hard for me to respect him as a man. Forget even as pastor, as a man, because you don't take care of your house. But you're leading a group of people, but you can't take care of something as simple as pay for your baby. Still going in and out of court. And I'm not saying I can't listen to anything he preaches, but man, it would be so much easier to listen to you if you just live the word. I know the Jamal Bryant that gets up there and befriends. Who were the four preachers that they used to have on that show? They had the guy who sings. I forget his name. I forget their names because I don't even be paying attention like that. Bishop. Who was the bishop? He's isn't he Kojic? Bishop. What's his face? I see his face. I see his glasses. I can even imitate the way he preaches somewhat, but I can't. What is his name? Well, anyways, I'll describe what they do. Maybe it's not for them to have their name. And then there's the other one, the pastor in the Carolinas, who cheated on his wife and had to admit all that out loud, but then really tried to not admit that he cheated on his wife, and then tried to pass out when TD Jakes put his hands on him and stuff. What's his face? Dietrich Hatton is one of them. There was Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dietrich Hatton, Bishop Noel Jones, because he's great at preaching too, but he got some stuff going on. And then what's his face? Pastor John Gray, not to be confused with Dr. John Gray writer of Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, or Pastor John Gray. And all of them can preach. They sound great. But look at their personal life. It's hard for me to listen to it. They put y'all on this show. They put y'all in Hollywood because y'all live outside. So you got cognitive dissonance, and now now we have to keep caping up for you, but we have to cape up for your evil and your sins that you keep doing. So if you keep doing them, now we have to gaslight. We have to tell people that they're wrong for calling you out because you are consistently sinning. And it makes us look terrible. It makes us look terrible in the diaspora. It makes us look terrible in Israel. It makes us look terrible for those of y'all that are still doing the church life. It makes you look terrible because you got to defend these jokers. And so even though they give a word, but Pastor Jamal Bryant, I know you don't take care of your children at all. At all. And that the Bible says that means that you're worse than an infidel. A non-believer gets more respect than you, even though you're in a pulpit preaching. That's just what it says. I didn't write that out. And see, I'm not going to gaslight. But then I can't see, but then you hung out with Bishop Noel Jones. And Bishop Noel Jones, we know that he never even got, well, I don't know, did he get married recently? I've been paying attention the last 10 years or so. But I know for the longest time he wouldn't get married, but he had this one woman that he was with carrying around and also having other women on the side. But he had this one main woman that was supposed to basically be there out of order, preaching against it. See, that's the problem. If you had preached and said you believe it, well, even though it still be wrong, at least I could say this is his belief system. But you preached against it. One of the greatest preachers of all time. Bishop Noel Jones is one of the most underrated preachers of ever. Like, listen to Bishop Noel Jones, and even if you can't get into it, because he's very, what we call charismatic. He starts real low, and he's talking like this, and eventually he starts to sing a little bit, and then he starts getting a little louder and stuff like that. But some of y'all, he might not be a cup of tea as far as the style, but listen to what that brother says. One of the greatest preachers that ever exists. But man, it's difficult for me to listen to you when I know people who know you. Like, I used to be part of a small congregation. I used to be like an interim pastor of a small congregation that was next door to a big, really big congregation. Like a really huge one in the same, whatever you would call it, that Noel Jones is when they come together and they do the convocations and all that, right? And in the same order. And I talked to the guy about Bishop Noel Jones and found out some things about him. Some of them I can't say because I don't know if I can verify them. But this guy was telling me, so we were putting together something for children. And he was telling me that if he said he was going to get Bishop Noel Jones to show up. We were going to do this big thing over in an area of Maryland called Clinton, Maryland. And we were going to put this big thing together for children. We were going to have the stage set up. There was a stage set up outside, all that stuff. And he told us straight up, he was like, I'm going to have to be the one to talk to Noel Jones. I didn't even think of asking about somebody on that level. But he was like, yeah, we can have Bishop Noel Jones come and and all this stuff. He said, and I'm going to challenge him. And I was like, you're going to challenge him? But I listened because this was another bishop. And I'm basically, a minister trying to do the interim pastor thing till they find another pastor. I'm really young. And so, but I'm listening, and he schooled me. He said, I got to challenge him. He said, because Bishop Noel Jones, if I were to offer him a certain, and I won't even tell you what the amount of money is, because some of y'all wouldn't believe me. But he said, if I offered him amount of money, he said that that's not even enough to put fuel in his jet. And so I'm young, dumb, kind of new to the Christian experience somewhat, maybe like 7 years or so into the Christian experience, maybe more like 5 or 6, I don't know, something like that. But I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute, what did you say? He says, yeah, that's not even enough money to put in his jet. He's like, so I'm gonna have to challenge him, and I'm gonna have to tell him, in order for him to come for us, I'm gonna have to tell him that some things are bigger than money. And I was just sat there. I was like, wait a minute. So that's a challenge? Like, if somebody shows up, and I get it, the workmen worth their hire and this and that, but if I could barely get you a first class ticket, you won't come. And if I get you a hotel room or make sure somebody's gonna take care of you, they'll even leave their house for you to stay there, you wouldn't come if I couldn't make sure I put fuel in your jet. And he told me, he explained, he was like, I'm gonna have to challenge him. Wow. Right? But that's Jamal Bryant. That's Noel Jones, right? But after that, then you had who? You had Dietrich Haddon all over the place, making songs with whoever at this point. And every time you guys say, maybe you shouldn't be representing the kingdom like that. Like, we don't care that you dress new and that you got to make sure that you hip hop oriented and this and that, but maybe you shouldn't be doing some of the stuff with the kingdom that you're representing it in. Like, just think about it, because even though you might even be correct on some of this stuff, remember, we're not supposed to be stumbling blocks. He ain't trying to hear none of that, is he? And if you say something against him, then you just not in the spirit. The fourth one, Pastor John Gray. Y'all remember not too long ago that he got in the whole thing about cheating on his wife, and a woman came out and literally was tired of like people trying to make her look bad when they found out about it. So she came out and told the whole truth, and she was like, "Hey, I can tell you what his underwear looked like. I can tell you where he was. I can give you the text messages," and she did all that. And his wife ended up finding out, and I don't know if she actually trusted him or not. It just said, "Hey, you know what? You're gonna be in the doghouse, but I'm gonna support you publicly." Seems like it's probably the latter, what I just said. But basically, they had to come out in front of the congregation. Well, they still hadn't officially started even yet. They hadn't even officially started their congregation yet. They had, or maybe they had just started it. Like Joel Osteen, they're under him. We all remember he used to preach. If y'all don't know, he used to preach on Joel Osteen's platform for a while, and they were trying to get him out there so that they can go ahead and get that North Carolina church up and popping. What was it? I can't even call something. Not Revelation, but like Resilience or something church, something like that. And but came out, oh yeah, he was cheating on his wife. As text messages, knew who it was, people knew about it or whatever. He was leaving messages on the phone. She played the messages on the phone. He was talking about how sexy she was and this and that or whatever, and how he wishes Relentless. Thank you, Relentless. Yeah, that's the name of the church, Relentless. And he was trying his best to try and make all that stuff happen and all that stuff. Like, we caught him. And then he says, "Oh no, you guys took it out of context, this and that." Now, if I'm going to support you, Pastor Gray, and I'll still call you Pastor Gray because that calling is between you and the Most High. I don't know if you called or not, but I know you're making us look bad, and I can't do it anymore. None of the four of y'all. I can't keep telling people, hang in there, support us, blah, blah. Like, after a while, I just got to start telling people, you're right, we doing some crazy stuff. You know, like, it comes a point to where I can't gaslight it anymore. Like, you're seeing this stuff, you're hearing this stuff, and look, I look. See, it's almost like, because none of us are perfect, right? But it's not about even being perfect at this moment. It's about even acknowledging there's a problem, there's trauma going on, and we won't even acknowledge the problem, y'all. Are you over there, Sister Teresa? Okay, right. We won't even acknowledge the problem. It's hard to deal with, because now, where does John Gray go for us to be able to say that he's being healed and that everything's fine? He goes to Texas. He goes to the Potter's house, and TD Jakes lays hands on him, and he falls out. So now, TD Jakes, as much as I love you, you've done a lot of stuff like that, though, bruh. And when people call it out, you're making us look bad. Like, TD Jakes, I thank you. If it wasn't for books like Emotions and Women Thou Art Loosed, and so many different things that he's written or whatever, so many different series that he's done, especially early TD Jakes, like not even TD Jakes when he was in like the huge suits and all that, the real baggy suit. I'm talking about TD Jakes when he still had hair. Y'all ever experienced the TD Jakes that still had hair and had the part in it and all that stuff? Right, like that TD Jakes, go listen, and he still has great teaching still to this day. But I'm saying, go back and listen to those teachings. Like, when I found out about TD Jakes for real, and I started listening to some of those things, and I went back, like, he was another level. Like, I've never seen anything like where I'm talking about where the charismatic met the truth like that. Like, he had that thing on lock and still does. Like, when he gets in his bag, there's very few that can touch him, right? But I'm saying, even with you, TD Jakes, like, you can't sit up there and have Medea laying you out. That's a clout move. And you my daddy anyways, TD Jakes. Like, I don't want to see my daddy fall over and maybe mess himself up. He was in West Virginia, yeah, of course. In West Virginia, matter of fact, I heard stories about people who were in West Virginia with TD Jakes. One woman who became like she was my pastor, and then she got elevated later on to being an apostle or whatever, and taught me a lot of things. She's the reason why I started thinking about Hebrew terms the way that I do, on the level I do, and stuff like that. Praise and honor to her, Apostle Fenrick. I haven't heard from her in years. Prayerfully, her and her husband are still doing well, and their children. You know, It's when I look at, but she told me stories. She did stuff with him over there where they asked him, invited him to come to an event they were doing, and he came there when he was just starting to get something. So he wasn't, because remember when you watch a lot of early TD Jakes before he gets to the Potter's house, especially, you'll see he's always at somebody else's church because he still hadn't got an actual. He was looking to try and start, and people from all over the place were starting to learn his name. He didn't have an actual place yet, so he still technically was over this place. That's why he called himself Bishop, but he was actually trying to start another church. But he had this place in West Virginia, and he has a great story. West Virginia, didn't had holes in the bottom of his car like the Flintstones and stuff. Was picking up people from all over West Virginia. They had one stoplight there. He didn't have electricity and running water sometimes, had to do that to be able to keep his family there. His wife had to live through a whole bunch of different things, almost died giving birth to their son, and yet he's still here. Like, TDJ's story is amazing. I'm not trying to say they have no value or anything. That's not what I'm doing. But man, TDJ's, when I hear about how these people invited you when you were just coming up, and everybody had agreed that they were going to be part of this event, and part of this stuff that was changing people's lives, this revival. Everybody agreed they would do it for free. All the money that was being raised was being given to particular groups that needed stuff. And here comes TD Jakes, whom I love. Once again, have mad respect for, right? All these, but we can be imperfect. Here comes TD Jakes, preaches, everything finishes. They say thank you like they do to everybody else. They're in there counting the money. TD Jakes doesn't come to the leadership. TD Jakes goes to where the money's being counted. They say, "What you doing in here?" Right? Yeah, judgment starts in the pulpit. I'm sorry, Michael. Hello, how you doing? I just saw that. Right? TD Jakes, they said, "What you doing in here?" He says, what do you mean? I said, "What are you doing in here?" He said, "Well, I'm here for a love offering." How we use these words. They say, well, as far as the love offering, everybody's doing this for free. We told you that before we got here. Didn't you get in touch with Sister So and so about that? Blah, blah, blah. He says, oh no, Sister So and so knows that if you don't preach a word without getting the seed. They just look at each other, and this big dude is in there kind of being a bully. They just look at each other and they say, and they give him money that they weren't supposed to give him. Right? I'm just trying to tell you. Now, once again, I'm thankful for a lot of messages. What I'm saying is, man, that same TD Jakes, it makes us look bad. I can't support you putting your hand on Pastor John Gray's head like that, knowing what he is. Right? I can't support it. I can't act like that's cool. I can't act like it was cool for you to get the land that you got and act like y'all gave it to me, this and that. But we know who you bowed down to. You got that from George Bush and family. That's who made you who you were. They decided that they needed you over there. And I'm not saying that, I don't know if I was in a situation, what I would do, or if I would do the same thing. I haven't been in the situation. What I'm saying is we can't keep gaslighting about it. The truth about gaslighting, right? Gaslighting, once again, is what? As far as what they tell you gaslighting is saying that, hey, um, this is my experience. Somebody says, no, that's not your experience. And matter of fact, you should listen to the experience of the one who's the owner. At some point, we got to stop gaslighting. We got to stop saying we gaslight. Like I said earlier, not only do we get gaslit, not only do we gaslight, but we sometimes gaslight ourselves. We make excuses for the behavior that we have. And how you doing, babe? I'm sorry. Did you pop up? I think I just realized. I was looking and so I thought it was somebody else's thing, but I just realized. Didn't I see Blooming Flirt? Yeah. Hey, babe, how you doing? The Honorable Mind's on with us. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And thank you for helping her out in her mission to make sure that she make sure that the mission of the diaspora concerning our health is taken care of. Amen. Sorry about that, babe. I saw something that I just realized my mind clicked like that was probably your thing. It flipped real fast, but thank you. I'm so glad to have you on with us. Where was I at? Yeah. So we keep gaslighting this thing long enough. Who's Pastor John Gray? You can look him up. Now, there's a Dr. John Gray. You got to be careful. Dr. John Gray is somebody who's an atheist who wrote Men Are from Mars, Women from Venus. Pastor John Gray is a pastor for Relentless Church over in the Carolinas. So, but that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of this stuff happened, or even like I was saying before, you're gonna put your hands on Medea. And I'm not trying to say that Tyler Perry can't be somebody's grip, but let's not act like y'all wants us to be out here. See, this is what we talk about. Somebody will tell us what is the lane of a man. You have somebody that wasn't raised by a man, right? You have somebody that wasn't raised by a man, right? And he starts wearing women's clothing. Make sure that there's always these really chiseled men around. Make sure that we're always represented in a really weird light. It's a Chitlin circuit type thing. And we needed the Chitlin circuit at one point because we couldn't make money without our own stuff. But now we don't have to have it in the same way. We got a way of doing it without it. And the same Tyler Perry, who, yes, blesses a lot of people. No, I'm not trying to say he's imperfect, that everything he does is imperfection. What I'm saying is do you not realize the damage it causes to where people have more respect for the man that dresses like a woman than they do for the man that's trying to be masculine? He said we are called to have faith in Elohim for provision while working in the way he has taught us. Sure. You said he had to retreat and run. You wouldn't have let him. You pray for him. Yeah. I'm sorry. What'd you say? It's like how the government, WEF, says he will own nothing and be happy, yet they got their private jets and home. Yeah. And by the way, I think that it's bad for people to be like, I shouldn't own anything. Like when I say I don't own anything, I mean from the context of like, I'm just a steward of it. But real talk, I want my community to make sure that we have land and stuff, but if I become a millionaire someday, I'm not gonna be mad about that. Here's the deal. If you become a millionaire, like let's not gaslight. If you become a millionaire, ain't nothing wrong with that. But you shouldn't be no pastor making 50 million a year, 100 million a year, multiple jets, planes, this and that, or whatever. And people in your community, when they die, when they die, people in your church, when they die, if they couldn't give you a tithe or offering for 2 months straight, you tell them that they can't be buried by you and they can't have a service in your church. See, there's a difference. Like, get all. I want you to get all of every provision that's for you. I want you to get everything that's for you. And everything. Yahweh says, and he wants you to prosper, and everything as your soul prospers. Get everything that's for you. Every single thing that's out there for you, get it. Right? But if you're going to be a millionaire and your brother or sister can't even eat, I mean, we got to figure that one out. Matter of fact, if you know how to do it right, you can make sure that they eat through another organization and just pay the organization 100%, and make sure that organization is 501c3, and you can make sure you get 100% of your finances you gave right back in your taxes, if that's what you want to do. You said, is this why they want actors and comedians to wear a dress? It's a very huge thing, right? Like it's something that they continue to do. We know that pretty much all these actors out here, especially strong black actors, right? Black men that are actors, they want you to wear a dress at some point. Now they're starting to do the opposite too, which is if you're going to be an actress in this thing and you're going to be a black actress and you're going to get them roles with, in other cultures, movies and stuff, then you got to be introduced or you got to at some point play a lesbian character. So they're actually taking it where they'll dress you like a man and then you got to be a lesbian. And right, but it's been for decades now, where if you're going to be a man and a male, and a lot of times even a comedian, they really hit those comedians hard, but just actors in general, you're going to have to dress up as a woman at some point. Right? You said Dave Chappelle and Cat Williams didn't want to do it true. Even though, real talk, as much as I love Dave Chappelle for what he said, don't forget Dave Chappelle, he did wear a dress at a movie. It's one of the movies I used to watch too much, Robin Hood Men in Tights. Now, I think he might have worn it. I was thinking about this the other day, that he might have worn it because the white males and everybody else wore it. So it wasn't just him. It was actually like something all of them were doing. But he wore the dress too. Cat Williams didn't wear the dress, but he had the scene where the guy was trying to rape him. That was the closest he would go. He knew what was going on, but that was the closest he would go. But he never wore the dress. But Dave Chappelle, he wore the dress. I feel like my sister just sent out a thing not too long ago talking about, I said yes to the dress because she's getting married. And I feel like I'm doing the same thing. He wore the dress. He said yes to the dress. Remember Kevin Hart? He was interviewed. He said he would never wear the dress. Kevin Hart wore the dress, right? Saturday Night Live. And Kevin Hart wore the dress. Supposedly is playing as a little, like, think about how perverted this one was. Kevin Hart wore the dress. I'd never even seen the scene. I finally saw somebody talk about it the other day and realized what they were talking about. Kevin Hart, he wore the dress, dressed as a little girl. He was supposed to be a little black girl, something like a 9-year-old black girl. And that little black girl was supposed to be voted in as the new pope. Put that stuff on there, put all that together, let that marinate. you know, y'all remember the movie? I don't even know the name of it, but the one that had Wesley Snipes, and I always forget the guy's name. The guy who played the little plump guy in Spawn. I always forget his name. John Leguizamo, right? John Leguizamo, Wesley Snipes, and somebody else. They wore the dress in the movie together. Ving Rhames. Not only did he get raped in a Quentin Tarantino film, right, and squealed like the pig and all that stuff or whatever. It was called Wong Fu or something. Tu Wong Fu. Okay, I don't know. But like but then you had Ving Rhames. Not only did he play getting raped in the movie or whatever, which I'm not even. I mean, I guess if you're gonna act, you're gonna have to act in a lot of different ways, whatever. But it was like a comedy thing. It was played like comedy more than anything else, the way it was. And then Bruce Willis had to go literally save his, what. But then he also played the one. I don't even know the name of the movie, but he played the dress, the thing in the movie. But they make him wear 'em. And I'm not saying there aren't any white actors that don't wear dresses in movies, but that are male. But I'm saying it's almost a prerequisite. Denzel is about the only person that besides Cat Williams, that didn't wear. I mean, The Rock has worn the dress. That was in Pulp Fiction. Yeah, thanks, babe. That was in Pulp Fiction when Ving Rhames that scene happened. Of course, people even playing homosexual characters. That's almost a given. It's got to, a lot of black people going to be. But I'm telling you now, they're doing the same thing with women having to play lesbian characters if you're black. One of the latest ones is, I don't know her name, so forgive me, but the woman in Jurassic World Dominion, the third Jurassic World movie, which is the sixth Jurassic Park movie, whatever. She had to play. They're sitting up there in the scene. My wife pointed it out when she said it, where they're sitting up there. I didn't even realize that what she had said, but until my wife pointed it out. But we're watching the movie, and all of a sudden, like the girl who's looking after the daughter, that's not really her daughter or whatever, is married to the guy who played, Sky-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. There's too many titles and people for me to keep up with, but he's with the redhead girl. The redhead girl, she goes away or whatever, and they eject her so she can land and try and find their daughter or whatever. And then the black girl, she's like, you got a thing for redheads? He's like, yeah, obviously. He's like, or no. She said something, and she's like, yeah, I got a thing for redheads too. I understand, or something like that. But they do that a lot in these movies now. In a lot of these movies. When you said she liked redheads too, while doing same actions as a man. Yeah, they're doing a lot of that. It is part of the culture. And see, when you point it out, somebody says you're gaslighting. Like, how am I gaslighting? Like, show me the evidence. Like we talked about yesterday, the proof about evidence, or the truth about evidence. Show me the evidence that shows me that I'm wrong. Like, and I'm just hitting the list. I don't know all the names. I don't watch movies the way I used to. I used to like be dedicated to watching movies. Would go watch movies in theaters by myself at least once a week. Knew about the behind the scenes. Still, I like to dabble in the behind the scenes stuff. But like, I don't even watch it the way I used to. Right? Innuendo is the Mickey in our mental drink. Wow, that's a bar right there. Innuendo is the Mickey in our mental drink. Wow. Yeah, you fall asleep and don't even realize what's being done to you, right? So, and today, in the truth about gaslighting, like, we got to be honest about this stuff. Like, if once again, your trauma, it's hard to deal with trauma if your trauma is always connected to gaslighting. If I say this is what my people go through, if I say this is what my family's experience, if I say this is what my wife is going through, if I say this is what my husband's going through, if I say this is what I'm going through, and you say, no, just get it together, right? It's not the truth. Gaslighting. Now, what I love about this though too is when people gaslight us, it is evidence that we must be telling the truth, right? That's something as we get ready to end. Let's make sure that we have a positive spin and a positive mindset when we end this, and not only think about how we're being done dirty, da 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 da, right? Like when people try to gaslight or spin this stuff on us, it's proof and evidence to the contrary. It's what we would call a paradox. You guys know what a paradox is? Y'all give me in the descriptions if you can. What is the definition of a paradox? What do you think? What would you say a paradox is? See, this is paradoxical, and we have an opportunity to be able to have a positive outcome of this paradox. Anybody know what a paradox is? Somebody said a loop, in a sense, depending on what we're talking about. So do we all, Samaya. So do we all. Cyclical, okay. May I introduce to you a part of the definition of paradox that maybe you were not on. You said Back to the Future taught you that, and that they're saying it's a paradox, but it's a paradox for a reason. So that's actually very true. I didn't realize you were using the future reference, but that actually makes sense. So the Back to the Future thing, I now get what you're talking about, right? But that it's a paradox because of something. You said confused moment that is the opposite of clarity. Pretty much, you said contradictory nature. All right, you ready for this? A paradox is something that somebody tells you, and flat on its face, it seems like it is impossible that that could be true. However, it could be false, but through further research, a lot of times it could actually prove to be more true than it is false, if not outright true. Right? That's what a paradox is. A paradox is I tell you something, you say there's no way it can make sense. But then life experience and things happen, or even experimentation happens, and you say, not only does it seem to be true, but it might actually just be 100% true. That is a paradox. So that's why when you say Back to the Future, being able to go through time flat on its face would seem like that's something that's impossible. But the movie proves that actually, in fact, it is more than just slightly possible. It is actually truth. Yeah, you could even say it like that. It's seemingly absurd, but possibly true, right? And so it is paradoxical for a lot of people when we tell them something they've never experienced. You said a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition. There you go, right? So it seems to be a paradox. How you doing, Cash? When I say to a lot of people, because they've never experienced this, when I say that I've never been raised in a society that says that the women in our community are less than the men. I'm not saying I've never dealt with a person here or there, but that seems paradoxical, especially in the feminist movement, for somebody to say, I've never been the person to think that because I'm a man, I'm actually better. Now, I might think I'm better, and if I be honest, in my flesh sometimes, because I just think that I think that I know something that somebody else doesn't know, or I make the mistake of thinking that, because I'm taller, I can do this, or I make the mistake of thinking that because I went to a certain school of thought process or whatever to get something that somebody else know what I'm talking about. Like that could be the case, right? But I'm going to tell you a paradoxical statement. I'm going to tell you a paradox. I know you believe that I'm part of the patriarchy, but could it be possible that not only am I not part of the patriarchy, but I'm not even part of the patriarchal system? And maybe that's why the patriarchal system doesn't like me, right? May I submit a paradox to you? Could it be possible that that every single person who's gaslit you is somebody who can't even see what you can see? On its face, it seems this is why you get mad at people. Don't you see it? You're not even seeing it. They can't even see it. They can't even see it. Can't you see what women go through? Can't see it. He part of the system. He's in the system. He can't have any revelation and rejoice in you being free. Revelation. He can't see that. He part of the system. I had to I had to come see, I joined the system. I left a system to where in my neighborhood, women ran the show. Men don't live that long in the system that I was in. I was born and raised in a system where men die early and women live long. A lot of y'all been raised in the same system. I was raised in that. We didn't have patriarchs, we had matriarchs. It wasn't until my grandmother passed away that we actually had to start thinking that there was a man that could be over things because the oldest person left was the oldest son out of her husband who had passed before her and her. You said which patriarchal system? You said the Torah has a system built off Yah through the patriarchs. Oh, I can see what you're saying as far as the fathers, but I'm talking about, so I get you on that. I'm with you. I won't even go further. I dig what you just said. I'm into all the words or whatever, but I dig what you just said. I'll leave it whole the way that it is, right? But I left my system that said that matriarchs were in charge and really a system that said that men weren't really that worthy of whatever, except for a couple men here or there, and that's only if they made enough money. I left that system and went into the military. That's when I got introduced into, wait a minute, like white women just listen to stuff that their husbands be saying, like, and actually, like, even though they know they're wrong, they feel like they got to bow down to it. I never had seen that before. Like, I could treat a white girl like crap, and she's still gonna listen. Like, I'm just saying, I never experienced that. That might sound like a paradox to you, but research my life. I didn't come from that. I was always the person trying to just fit in. I wished and hoped that I could be the token for the rest of my life and be accepted as close to white as possible. Right? You never know. We might be. Hallelujah. Praise God. Right? But these are the things that I was raised in. That's a paradox to a lot of people because y'all think that everything was about being that black women were down. Now, am I saying that there aren't black men that don't mistreat black women? Of course there are. What I'm saying is you got to realize that a lot of these people you think are mistreating you, sometimes they can't even see it because they're part of a system. But a lot of us, we come from a system where that's never been the case. And some of these people are acting up because they've never been part of that system. That's a paradox. That's the paradoxical type statement. That is a paradox for some. Where it's hard for you to believe that there's a system out there that still exists that's different, right? Do you know that there are women who have been raised by fathers who have respect for men, but want to see their men have missions that they can submit to? That's why it's called submission, just like they themselves had to learn how to submit to their father's mission and they saw their mother do it. And so when they're asking you, how do you feel? Hey, baby, what are you thinking? This and that or whatever. They're not asking that because they're trying to do some feminist type thing. They're asking you that because they actually want to know what your mission is. But whenever she says, hey, babe, what are you thinking? Your answer is always the same. It is nothing. And so if you ain't thinking nothing, then she ain't going to submit to nothing. I know it's not just that simple, this and that. There's why there's variables and yes, yes, yes. But I'm just trying to tell you, like, there's a paradox here. There's something that you might just automatically say, this is absurd on its face. But I'm here to tell you that do some research and you'll find out we are not in the system already. See, this is the beauty of it. We want people to come out of the system and be, or at least if you're in it, you don't have to be of it. Real talk though, a lot of you are already not even allowed to be of it. You hear what I'm saying? A lot of you are not already allowed to be of it. You hear what I'm saying? You're already not allowed to be of it. You're already not really treated correctly. You're already dismissed. You're already looked at because of wrong, because of who you are, what you are, your stature, what money you make, what your hair looks like, your skin color. The list goes on. You're already dismissed anyways. Might as well just stay out of it. There. That sounds like a paradox to some. It sounds like a paradox to some, but it's real talk. It's a real message. It's a reality. It's something we should honor. You're already in a paradox. I know. See, this is our problem. We grew up, like, watch this. If I grew up and mama wasn't around, it's hard for me to receive, right? Look, my mom got sick or whatever, but sometimes it can be hard for me to receive what a woman is trying to tell me or teach me or show me or feminine values or things like that because mama passed away. And so a lot of stuff that's there, getting back into feminine stuff, when I get the love of a mother, it actually very emotional for me because I wish I had that. and I put a blind spot to it, and I dismissed my feelings, and I said, okay, mama's gone. That was beautiful what I had. And then when I found other mother figures, what happened is what? Like those mother figures, like my mama did anyways, right? But in your mind, she was perfect, blah, blah, but she wasn't, she made mistakes too. But it's like in your mind, you're like, ah, see, she just let me down. I thought she could be mama, but she gonna let me down. I thought she could be mama. Sometimes you try to make your wife mama, right? But you want that in your life, right? And that goes away, and you can't trust it. You can't receive it. There's people who are on the opposite end didn't have a father in their life, and so you get a fatherly love or a brotherly love or whatever it is. You can't trust it, right? But what if there's a paradox that says that the thing that you don't trust might be the thing that you're looking for? That's a word right there for somebody. I don't know who that's for. We're getting into prophetic. I'm trying to go ahead. I know we're getting up on our time. So if 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern hits and you got to go somewhere, I comprehend it. I get it. But this might, somebody needs to get this, right? I feel like a burning desire. I feel like an itching on me. Like I got to get this off me. Like for somebody, you need to hear this, that maybe the thing that you don't trust, here's the paradox. Maybe the thing that you don't trust is the thing that you need the most. Maybe the fact that you didn't have a father is the reason why it's hard for you to receive fatherly love, right? Or the love of a husband, or the love of a son, even, or the love of a spouse, the love, whatever. But today you can live in that paradoxical statement, that mindset that says that the very thing I was missing might be there, and there might be somebody that's there. Look, I don't know if it's me or if it's somebody else, and I know some of us be the same age. Some of y'all older than me, I get it, but some of y'all have told me that certain things, and I get it spiritually. Like we might need to, not might. Thank you, Holy Spirit. We have a necessity to come together. Yeah, like even finding out his name is not Jesus, but I'm talking about even more so on this relationship human tip, right? Like there's something there that the thing that you swear, that you can't trust might be the very thing that you need to trust. You hear what I'm saying? Like the thing that you swear, the the business that you have, that you be like, man, I've seen so many people not make it in there. I don't have this much money. I don't have this much gold. I don't have this much. I don't have the knowledge. I don't think I'm competent enough. I don't think I'm confident enough. I don't think I have enough constituency. Whatever the case might be, this thing that you're doubting might be the very thing you need to dive into like never before. This might be what you're on the high dive, 50 feet up, right? Looking at something that looks like the ocean, trying to decide if you should dive in. It says that it's 500 feet in the water. So even if you were to dive in 500 feet and 50 feet, you might be able to come up fine. It might be able to come up where you can swim up fine. But in your mind, what if it's 12 feet? What if it's not what they say it is? Right? What if it's going to hurt me? What if it's going to cause damage to my body? What is going to cause me to not be able to walk again? I mean, these are all things that could be reality, but trust the technique. This is what we've been given today, and these keys and everything, and all these things like that. Amen, brother, sister, and all these things we have. Trust the technique. Trust the technique. And I know I'm missing some comments. I'm trying to catch them as I'm going, but trust the technique. You say you've been pushing away promotion out of fear. Yeah, trust the technique. Trust the word. Trust the will. Trust your heart. Trust that thing. Trust your gut. You don't just think with your brain, right? Trust your heart. You don't just think with your heart. Trust your gut. You don't just think with your gut. Trust your feet. They want to walk that way. You don't just think with your feet. Trust your feeling. You're getting tingles whenever you think about it, but you won't walk in it. What if I fail? What if you don't? What if I fail? What if I lose the home? What if you get a better home? What if I fail? What if I get in a fight? What if that fight causes you and your spouse to become stronger than what you ever were? Right? Here's the paradox for you, right? The paradox for you. Today is the truth about what? What are we talking about today? Today is the truth about gaslighting. Don't gaslight yourself. Don't tell you can't to yourself you can't go any further. Right? Yeah. What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? See, may I interject something for you? May I add something to this real quick for you? You ready? What if what Yah has for you? Because it's not even a what if. This is what it really is. But what if what the Most High has for you? Hear what I'm saying? What if what's for you is exceeding abundantly above all you could ever ask or think? Let me say it again because the plane is going overhead. I want to make sure you catch this, right? What if what the Most High has for you exceedingly is exceeding abundantly? It exceeds, it's over what abundance is. Whatever your mindset of abundance is. See, abundance is not just what you need, abundance is taking care of your needs, your wants, all. But what if what the Most High has for you? It exceeds abundance. Above all, you could even ask for or think. See, you asking, what if it doesn't work? What if it's going to work better than you can even imagine? I know I'm supposed to be dedicated to this, but you're asking for a lot out of me. But what if I'm asking something that when you start doing it, you realize it's not even a lot? Yeah, paradigm shift. What if you start doing it? Watch this. If somebody had told me every day I would be averaging out to about doing to depending on the day, 3 to 6 to 7 hours of speaking to folk, and then might still have to talk to people on the phone, and still might have to travel, and still might have to do this and that or whatever, and still might have to do a workout with people, and still might have, like, if somebody told me that was going to be my life, I would have said, "There's no way on Yah's green earth, Aratz, that I would ever be able to do that." That's what I would have told you, if I be honest with you. It doesn't make sense. And yet, when it's time to go, it's time to go. I'm ready. Right? I'm not saying that I'm not human. I'm not saying that I don't get sick from time to time. I'm not saying I don't need rest. But I'm telling you, when it's time to go, it's time to go. Lights on. Something takes over. It exceeds abundance of anything I could even ask or think. My body will be telling me sometimes, you can't do this today. And yet, when it's time to go, it exceeds abundance. You said last review, 5 words for next 5-year vision. Responded, living righteously and abundantly well. Amen. Got to step into it. I agree with that. We touch and agree. I don't know if you want to touch the phone or not. Let's high five each other real quick on that. Bam. I touch and agree, right? Right? It's time for us to go. It's time for us. Like when you're in your calling, I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like being in your work. That's why I keep talking about your work versus your job. Use your job to get into your work, but your work is where it is. You get tired on your job, even if you love your job. But man, your work is something that you can do and keep going and keep going. It's like that Energizer button they used to give us, right? Your work is the battery, right? Other people will fall off, but when you're in your work, you can't fall off. David didn't get in trouble with Bathsheba because he was in his work. He was the king. He was supposed to be, but he wasn't in his work. He was the king. You can be royalty and not be who you're supposed to be. David was the king, but he wasn't in the king's work. He had the title of king, but not the work of king in that moment. And that's when he was in a position where he saw somebody who shouldn't have even been out at this position probably at the time he was either. But that's when he went out and saw somebody he shouldn't have seen. He should have been the same place her husband was, which was at war. If he had done what her husband had done, he wouldn't have taken her husband's prize and wouldn't have killed her husband. And I'm sorry to say her husband's prize, but I'm talking about something that means a lot to her husband. Forgive me, I'm not trying to see you a trophy. Okay. But hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying to you, right? As we get ready to take our leave, hear what I'm trying to tell you. And all these things we're talking about, you're gonna have to make sure that you're in a position to where what? To where you are willing to move, where you are not gonna stop because you say, what if I can't? What if I can't? Where you are gonna go to a level where you said, I'm gonna get this done no matter what. Might be controversial. Work has to bring provision. You can't work for those that don't provide. I mean, that's true to a certain extent. Well, no, not even to a certain extent. That's true as well, as my wife said, right? So you work, and that's why I love this part because it's got to be Yah's work. It's got to be Yah's work. Everybody gonna tell you why you need to do this and blah blah. You said it's stealing if you work for someone and they don't pay for or reciprocate. Yeah, but that's why it's got to be Yah's work. And I love that saying. That's why it's got to be Yah's work because a lot of people are gonna come to us and tell us, "Man, well, if I was doing what you do, I would do this and this and this and this and this and this and blah blah." No, blah. No, no, no. Like, what did Yah say about it? And if he does it, now unto him who's able to do exceeding abundantly above all you could ever ask or think. All is all. He takes care of all. So it's going to be holistic. It's going to be holy. You're going to see a change that happens on all levels. And that means, guess what? It's about ready to affect your whole life. Whatever your calling is, if your thing is to be able to take care of you, it ain't going to last but so long because it's only going to take care of you. If your idea is, hey, I'm just going to take care of my family, then realize your family will get just what it needs. But if you want something in abundance, be ready for that abundance piece. And that means that people will begin to pour into you. Now, here's Luke 6:38 to support what my wife says even further, right? Give, and it shall be given unto thee. Elohim's measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet, shall it be given unto thee. Whatever you give out, Yahweh says, if you give out what I tell you to give out, I'm going to press it down, shake it together, run it over, and I'm going to cause other human beings to put it right back into you. Whatever you give out, they're going to give out to you according to my measure. So if my measure is 15 times yours, if my measure is 100 times yours, give out the best you can so that I can give you 100 times what you gave out. That's why some people will have the seed sown and it's just picked up, right, and scorched. And some people will get this word and get this seed, and it will just simply go a little bit rooted, but then it won't go that much because it doesn't take deep roots. Some people will get this word, and the vicissitudes, the things of life will come and choke it out. But then it says after that, some people will get this word, and it'll be what, 30, 60, and 100-fold. That's Matthew chapter 13, right? So it's saying that the kingdom, the seed is going to be there. And when you give to people, it's only natural that when you give to people who are Yah's, he's going to make sure that they give back to you in some way, shape, or form, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. It says, shall men give to your bosom? But it says you got to give a measure. Whatever you're going to get back, you got to give out a measure. You hear that? Whatever you're going to give out, you got to give out a measure. And who are you, as my wife was saying, who are you measuring it to? If you give a measure of your gift to somebody who doesn't believe in your gift, then Yah still might bless you with something, but you got to comprehend who you're giving it to. Not even that. Let me say it different. Holy Spirit said, let me rewind some and say it again. Look at it like this. If I give a measure of something to somebody that the Most High didn't tell me to give a measure of it to, then I shouldn't be frustrated when I don't get anything back from him, because he never signed, sealed, and delivered that. He never pressed that down, shook it together, and ran it over. He never said that was wine coming from heaven, coming from him, right? Pressed down, shaking together, running over. He never said that was there. I did that on my own. So some of y'all will preach in a church, but y'all never said, go preach in that church. And then you don't get nothing from that church. And then you try to say, why am I getting? See, that's the paradox. So you thought just because you preach in the church, you would receive. But what if that church is like what Yahshua talks about to the 7 assemblies, where he says, behold, I stand at the door and knock, which means that you might have gone to a service, but he's on the outside trying to knock to get in the service. But you inside praising, you said you inside praising God. But Yahshua is outside trying to get in the service. That means that he ain't part of it. He ain't tell you to go in there. You went in there. That's why at some point you got to have some Holy Spirit. You got to have something in you that says, I'm going to look for a system that's different. I'm even going to listen through a different prism, through a system that's different than mine. Because this system right here tells me that my prism that I should see through, that I should look through, that I should honor, that I should respect, etc. It tells me that I should look and listen a whole different way. Or he already went to the next house. Yeah, So here's the paradox for you. The thing that you might be running from, stop saying because it looks different, it's not going to work. Pray about it and seek Yah and see if you are in. Here we go again. See if you are in tune. See if you are in position. See, husbands, before you tell your wife to be in submission, see if you are submitted to the mission. If you're not submitted to the mission, even if you didn't mean to do something that might offend your wife, guess what? If you're not submitted to the mission, what's going to happen? You might miss something on that honey-do list. And when you don't do what you're supposed to do, now your wife, you've left the opening for her to be able to say why you didn't do blah, blah, blah. And you're mad at her, but you left the opening because you weren't submitted to the mission. Because if she didn't do the mission stuff, you would feel you'd have the right to say something about it. So before you ask for her to be in submission to the mission that you have been given by the Most High, make sure you're submitted to the Most High yourself. Then we get to those places, right? Then we can start talking about those things. Amen. I see this, Sister Benita. Amen. Hallelujah. Right. So that being said, though, my mission for today, for this rising, is over. I'll see you guys later on Kofi_42 at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. And we'll be back here on this channel tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your patience. We thank you for your excellence. We thank you for your um, for your for your gifts, for your talents, for those who are giving any kind of donations or anything like that, donations, tithes, offering, etc., things for classes, those who are helping with YLP 83, those who are just giving likes, shares, giving gifts on the stuff, those who are on YouTube, TikTok, watching this later on. We appreciate you so very much, and we honor you all. Today was the truth about um, gaslighting. And so we're thankful and grateful for you all, to you all, for being on. Prayerfully, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you again. We honor you. Keep on giving us some time now that I'm here and I'm starting to catch up on some things. We're getting closer and closer to try and get some of those videos out to you all. So we look forward to trying to get the different parts of the videos and different things from the convocation to you, and also still working on some stuff from the trip as well that we took cross country. So just hang in there. We'll have that stuff for you soon. We got to say it again, and I'm gonna put out some reminders before tomorrow for you guys on Google Calendar invite. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys are reminded that the November challenge, the SOC workout challenge, we will in fact be making sure that we start it for sure. We will be making sure that we start it for sure, no matter what, tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern New York time, for those who were joining us before. And we'll make sure that we start that. We'll be having, it'll be every other day stuff. So it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if you'd like to join us for that, let us know. Get in contact with us. Look in the link tree. Whether you're on YouTube or on TikTok, you can look in the link tree, get in contact with us. And we thank you so much for what you're doing around the world to make things better. Now, remember, tomorrow is the first Friday of the month. And every first Friday, we want to ensure that we get together, praise Yah, and make sure that we're a blessing to somebody on the street, somebody who needs clothes, somebody who needs food, somebody in your family, somebody might need a hug, somebody who needs a call, whatever the case might be. We're asking you to be a blessing to somebody on that Friday. You don't need to check in with us. You don't have to show us a video. You don't have to give us any pictures. We don't need proof. We're just asking for you to be a blessing to somebody. That's something that we use traditionally here as something to be a blessing. Remember that this year is still our year of living inside of that which we have pursued. And so we're going to hashtag finish strong in that. And we're looking forward to continuing to look beyond what we see as we get ready to start to press and strain towards what the Most High has for us. Thank you all again. We appreciate you. We honor the King and Queen in each and every one of you. Please, as always, check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you for the things that for you helping her out with the health of the diaspora, and continuing to help her in her even making sure that people are clothed and have food and clothing and things like that, and even shea butter and all types of stuff you guys have been providing to help us with the coat drives and things like that. So thank you again. We honor you all so much, and yeah, I think that's all that I have. So we look forward to seeing you guys this evening. If we don't see you this evening, we'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. Hopefully this evening we'll see you at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. If we have class, we'll see you at discipleship class later on. I'm sorry, at biblical law class later on this evening. And if we can, hopefully we'll see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow for the beginning of SOC workout challenge for this month. Thank you again. We appreciate you. We honor you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, Yashalel, that you are loved, you are necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Also, too, thank you again. For those, if you're saying those are things that you'd like to donate or things like that, we can try and figure out how to make that happen. We appreciate you, and just contact us, let us know, and we'll get back to you ASAP. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day, and take care of each other, as always. Peace.